What is your price? Because if your price is not your life, then you are for sale. Welcome back to the Price is My Life podcast. Today we're joined with Dr. Rick Addante. This might be one of the most fascinating and inspirational shows we've ever done. Rick is an inspiration to me. He recently blew the whistle, told the truth about his own university, a professor, of a neuroscientist, a cognitive neuroscientist, an expert in memory and consciousness, has a PhD from neuroscience. And there was recently a recording made of the president of Florida Tech that Dr. Rick Addante was involved in and exposed the university. So we're going to talk about that today, a story that OMG did back in April, a video recording from that university and of the president, talking about DEI, talking about the state of Florida, millions of dollars in money, and some deception and some lies. So Dr. Rick Addante is here to tell the truth. And he in his life has discovered new ways we retrieve memories from the past. He's a former diversity fellow, APA and NIH. He also was an analog astronaut, a crew member on a NASA mission as an analog astronaut. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And spent 45 days on that mission in 2017. He became a tenured faculty member at Florida Tech and was praised by the president, Nick Lau, until the truth-telling. He was offered a $100,000, was it a severance agreement? Some type of contract?
Apparently they sent it, yeah.
A $100,000 offer, but the problem with that was he would not be able to tell the truth. He would have to stay silent, and he refused to sign that document. I spoke with Rick before the show, and Rick told me that he was inspired by the Simon of Cyrene. What was it?
Simon of Cyrene.
Simon of Cyrene, a person chosen to carry the cross of Jesus Christ. Rick says there are certain times that we are all called. He has now been fired recently from Florida Tech for coming forward with video evidence showing what appears to be an alleged fraud and cover-up. Aged 43, he is a father and a husband. He has a Give, Send, Go page up right now, which we're going to pull up and talking about some of the health issues and medical issues, lack of insurance that he currently has. This man who was working with NASA, who has discovered new things about human memory and consciousness, has a PhD and was a tenured professor, has now been terminated, and he's mowing lawns to make money. One of the most inspirational stories I've ever seen from one of the most inspirational men I've ever met. We're going to today talk about integrity and how the truth is not for sale. Rick, thank you for being brave and appearing here in person. I know that you haven't really done anything like this before, even though you have been in media. I don't know where to begin, except maybe to begin, let's go to the videotape. Maybe we talk about the video that kind of brought us together. And This is the recording of the president of Florida. Maybe just set it up for the viewers, this situation in the conference room there at Florida Tech.
Sure. So the setup for this video is actually a month prior. We were in the same meeting, which happens every month for 5 years. And they told us of his intention to defraud the citizens of Florida in the United States of America for federal and state grant money because he didn't want to get caught continuing the prohibited DEI stipulations that he was given by the Office of the Governor to receive at least a $7 million grant. And we were told that he wanted to stay under the radar and that he wanted to try to stay out of court. And it was very clear that there was a conspiracy of everyone there to join in that, but they were also frustrated that he wouldn't speak those things publicly or write them directives and leaving the faculty out to dry. They said, have a backbone and stand up to President Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Show our students what does it mean to have courage and fight for your values. We shouldn't be cowering. Say this if we believe it, but don't hide it. And so he was invited to join our meeting the next month and tell us what he would refuse to write down on paper. And the meeting ensued. And he told us exactly that.
Well, we refused to say, so he had to say it verbally because he didn't want to put it in writing.
Exactly.
Do we have the clip, guys? Fight back with the $7 million.
Pardon me, I'm driving back thinking about this. Why don't we fight back? You know, $7 million. It's a lot of money, but if I lose $7 million,
Pause it for a minute.
we can live.
So just set this up for the audience. So what's going on? We're in a conference room at Florida Tech with the president of the university. And who's in this meeting?
A bunch of people. So it's the entire School of Psychology and the School of Behavior Analysis. And so that's a ton of professors. I don't know, 30 to 50, maybe. It's hard to know because not everybody attends every monthly meeting. It's regular that we always have. And we've had a lot of faculty quit and resign and leave. So it's hard to keep up with all the turnover that has happened. But it's a full room of many people, and they always record that meeting through meeting minutes, and then they blast it out to a bunch of people who were not present and couldn't come, and sometimes even people who don't even work there anymore. And so everyone's got their phone out on the table. Usually they're recording it themselves so that they can provide the appropriate minutes and records. And that's who he's speaking to, the entire crowd of people who only a month ago were so mad at him for wanting to undermine the push to keep DEI.
Mm-hmm.
And he was trying to have his cake and eat it too, and have it both ways.
All right, let's watch the rest of it.
And if we have to change some words so they're not being scraped and so we're not targeted, it allows us to do our work.
And then we'll play the next clip as well. The clip of him, the remainder of what he said about fighting back. And yeah, when they're in Tallahassee, play this.
So I had a $7 million ask. Talked about the project. Literally sat at his desk, turned two screens around and said, "Why?"
Who's he, or who's the desk? Like he says, his desk. What are they talking about?
Well, he didn't say the name, but in the meeting, he said, I don't want to say who, but I'm there at his desk. And he says, why are you so woke? He turns the screen around as the clip goes on to say.
Yeah.
So I was led to believe it was either Governor Ron DeSantis or somebody
Under
close.
his employee.
So somebody important enough to where he wouldn't want to even say his name.
That was why what we reported. We didn't state it as fact, but we assumed it was someone in the governor's office. We reached out to Governor DeSantis for comment. They denied, Governor DeSantis didn't do this, but it may have been someone that worked for him. Let's keep playing it.
Somebody who's maybe now the AG.
Maybe who's now the Attorney General.
He was the chief of staff.
Right. The Attorney General of Florida.
And pulled out two examples, and one was ICCM, and called Rich on the way home.
Some sort of institute for cross-cultural management or something of that nature. It's a big DEI institute.
Mm-hmm. So I called Rich on the way home, kind of tweaked the language. Keep going.
The language. These people are just looking for words. Okay.
Where sources say the duplicity came in is in after that meeting, the president of the university went against the deal and then said he was going to fight back with the $7 million.
Pardon me, I'm driving back thinking about this. Why don't we fight back? You know, $7 million. It's a lot of money, but if I lose $7 million, we could live with it. And if we have to change some words so they're not being scraped and so we're not targeted, it allows us to do our work.
So that was from our report back in April. Everyone saw that. Change some words so the school wouldn't be targeted. So they're trying to circumvent the DEI restrictions by just changing the language.
He never said change your deeds, change your actions.
Right.
He never said we're going to do the thing that we are required to do.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to change the words so it looks like we're doing it, but we're actually not complying.
And then what happened?
In the meeting or thereafter?
Thereafter.
Thereafter, your story came out, and as of a few days ago, I was terminated. I was terminated after having an offer to buy my silence.
And do we have that $100,000 offer? Can you pull that on the screen? This is, we're looking at a severance agreement. This is to get you $96,200. It's not $100,000. It's $96,000.
Yeah, just shy.
9-month salary. What are they asking you to do? This is Florida Tech?
Yeah. They just reached out and asked me to resign while accepting some money to stay quiet.
Stay quiet.
Not tell the truth. And also promise to never, ever, ever sue them.
And you didn't want to agree to that.
I couldn't.
You couldn't? What do you mean you couldn't?
It means I have a conscience. It means I have integrity. It means that I believe in the truth. Certainly the constitutional right to speak, but there's a deeper right to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond the Constitution, we have the right to speak truth in our life. It's not that I didn't want to. You can't.
Were you tempted to?
Not really, no.
No.
I think that, we're all human beings. So you could you throw $1 trillion, you're going to be tempted, right? There's always going to be something that is alluring and tempting where you would be irresponsible to think about it. You weigh balances, but the other side of that balance is conscience. It's truth. It's the integrity, the things that matter to who you are and what constitutes you. So now, I mean, you look at that and that doesn't, no, you're not tempted. No, that's not, no. When somebody says that they're going to terminate you for no reason under a claim of insubordination, and they don't tell you what you were insubordinate about, because I wasn't, there's nothing that happened of that nature. They held a secret meeting allegedly determining I was insubordinate that I didn't know about. And then they send you an offer to buy you off. If I did something wrong, just fire me. Don't offer me, you don't need to offer me money. And if you're just going to be a nice courtesy of parting ways in a friendly way, is not uncommon with severance and whatnot. Okay. But then that number would have been a lot lower than $96,000. So the fact that it was that number, it was so high, begging me not to sue.
So what did you do? You just said, I'm not going to sign this? Or you just didn't respond?
No, there's no way I'm signing that. I mean,
did you communicate that to the university? Did you tell them I'm not signing this? Or did you just not reply to their offer?
I was represented by counsel who communicated with them. And I don't know the precise words that he said, but it was made very, very clear that was a non-starter.
We're standing up to the powers that tried to discredit us, silence us, smear us, raid us, and throw us in jail. They've awakened a sleeping giant. We're building a movement of transparency and accountability in both the public and private sectors, because we run from nothing, we hide from nothing. And when you join and get your full access pass, you fuel a movement for truth. We are the media now.
We have a cease and desist letter that the university actually sent me, a cease and desist letter to try to prevent me from publishing your story. This is from Gray Robinson. Dear Mr. O'Keefe, good talking with you. Please have your legal counsel call me today at the earliest convenience, my direct line, blah. I hereby demand that you refrain from publishing the unlawful recording or transcript thereof in your possession. What's interesting about this is that they said it was unlawful, but they had minute meetings from the university, which I believe you sent us.
Yeah.
We have some of these minute meetings. So I guess they would make the argument it's a private university. And if Florida is a two-party consent statute, although you're in a public area there in the
There's no
conference room,
expectation of privacy. There's
no
no
expectation of
reasonable
privacy.
expectation of privacy in that meeting.
Correct. But private universities often say this sort of thing where it's a state university, because Florida Tech's a private university, but it gets federal funding.
And state funding.
And people don't know that. And these are the minute meetings from one of these. Was this the meeting in question, or was this a different meeting?
This was the meeting I
March 4th.
mentioned that set up that next one. This is the one where they literally discussed and then wrote down and sent to us the documented scheme to get around the stipulations for accepting state and federal grant money under the new DEI parameters, which, think what you want about the DEI parameters, whatever. For time immemorial, there's been always policies that we may or may not agree with, but we follow them.
Yeah.
We can't undermine them. We can't subvert them. And we need to follow that.
Just give the audience a background into the whole DEI situation broadly and specifically at the university, because we saw the clip where he's talking about getting around it, fighting DeSantis. But what is some background here on this whole situation, which led you to do this extraordinarily heroic thing, in my view? But what about it enraged you so much or enlightened you so much?
Well, it's sort of a nuanced answer, I suppose, I would give to that, which is that I hadn't been at the university for much of that year. I'd been on family leave. I had a new baby that had just been born. So I hadn't been around a lot. Thankfully, I wasn't there during the election season. I was, in and out of delivery rooms and hospitals and things like that. So I wasn't really aware of what was or was not going on politically. We're not a very political school. We're not Berkeley. We're not University of Michigan. We're not a Northeastern liberal arts college. So it was strange to see these kind of overhanded pressures to undermine the laws and the policies for DEI when I returned back from leave. And this might have been the first of the monthly meetings that I attended in that respect. And I attended, and people were outraged. They were mad at President Nicklo. Like I said, they thought he was being a coward because he wouldn't publicly back the message he was telling people privately, which was to continue doing DEI. And they were mad at him for it. And I was surprised because I'm seeing people outraged, yelling. They were crying in meetings at times about this.
The professors?
Professors, yes.
The professors who were anti-DEI, or
oh no, there are no professors. they were mad at the implications of the Trump administration's DEI policies, and then they were mad that the university president wouldn't write a policy to oppose the Trump administration, because other presidents are. There's litigation, and that's what I'm saying. Like there's a normal pathway that has existed since time immemorial of challenging policies you don't agree with. So no big deal on that.
Well, I find it interesting that the president was not willing to say this stuff kind of publicly, and he wasn't willing to put it in writing.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Of course. That's so unfortunate. We have to say, of course, but so you observed that.
He explained that because he said he didn't want to lose the funding, but he wanted to continue to do the DEI activities, which, to answer your question, we're not a big political university. We're a technical school, or we were. I guess I'm not there anymore. So aerospace engineering, I was also in the biomedical engineering group. So this psychology group is kind of like the stepchild on campus. They like to wear a STEM costume at times and pretend that they do STEM science, but for the most part, it's not. It's really one of the only groups that is involved in this, what you'd think of as this DEI kind of discriminatory material of teaching critical race theory, those kind of things. And so it was a little bit of a surprise because I wasn't used to having an overtly political environment always. I had been away for some time, and they were crying at the prospect of having to hide it. Mm-hmm. And that was surprising. And, But it is a pervasive discriminatory thing that happens on campus, because sometimes people worry or wonder about, well, what is it about the DEI that could be problematic, or, what have you. And what I've seen personally, witnessed through my time in academia, working at these institutions that are governed by things like Title IX, where they use DEI as a weapon and they weaponize it.
How do they do that?
Basically by the permissions granted them through the regulatory framework of Title IX. And they will become the thought police and the word police. I've been told on one hand at times when I addressed a classroom as you guys, I told that wasn't inclusive, and you can't call a room of mixed.
At Florida Tech?
Oh yeah.
You guys?
Yeah. And so so on another time, I addressed a class as 18 out of 20 of the students were women, and I said that I addressed them as ladies. And they said that was sexual harassment in Title IX regulatory framework for addressing a group of women as ladies. So I'm like, I can't call them guys, can't call them ladies.
They, them, you, all of you?
It's ridiculous.
Y'all?
It's ridiculous because the truth of the matter is, and this is the answer to your question, James, about what is some of the core level problems of DEI, is that it's not about diversity. It's not about equity. It's not about inclusion. It's not about any of those things. It's about a cudgel to control your thoughts and your words, because anything can be a problem that you say.
You were in March and April meetings leading up to this meeting. And what were those meetings like? Because I want to set the stage for people. What led you to do this recording? You observed things in those meetings prior to this one because something triggered you to do something about it.
Yeah. So in the March meeting, they had a report from one of our faculty members on our diversity committee, campus-wide. And she reported essentially what the president came and then told us in person. And she said he had this meeting in Tallahassee, and they essentially said, you guys need to get rid of all the DEI that you have on your website. We see that you guys do this stuff. We scrape your website. You're doing these things that are supposed to be prohibited. And so our diversity committee faculty representative was telling us that report, that we got essentially dinged for having all these things on the website that was now prohibited, and that we had to take it down, but that the president wanted to stay under the radar, which meant continue to do the activities.
Did they actually say that?
Yes.
They said it in the meeting?
It's on the minutes. It says stay under the radar.
Oh, it's on the minutes?
Yeah.
Do we have those? We'll pull those up.
Oh, yeah. And so a clear intent to willfully subvert, to look like you're complying on one hand, but actually not complying.
It's really
on the
the deception of it. It's why not just be honest? And that's something you told me. Why not just be public about what you want to do? But that's inherent in all the undercover videos that we obtain. It's like something they're saying private that they don't want people to know publicly.
I mean, there are many other university presidents who are not cowards and are suing the Trump administration against the DEI directives.
Right.
Because they actually are doing what they say they believe.
Why does he not want to be public about it?
Well, you'd have to ask him, but he sure didn't. He seemed pretty scared when you talked to him last time.
Yeah. Let's pull up the clip of me talking to President. Is it Nick Lau? That's how you pronounce his name. Nick Lau,
I believe.
Nick Lau. Let's pull up the clip of me confronting him outside my office. This is a funny story. I knocked on his door, and he had a secretary, and there was no doorbell, so I kind of like did one of those things on the glass, and I walked into the. She was a nice lady. She let me right in, and I guess he was getting ready to go home at night. He was literally walking out while I was walking in. I'm with O'Keefe Media Group, and we're doing a story, and we have someone who secretly recorded a meeting in your office talking about DEI and exposed that you were changing the words. I was walking in the president's office and trying to make an appointment, and then the president was walking out while I was walking in, about to leave, I caught up with him and he said, this is illegal. I'm going to contact my attorney. It's not illegal to record. There's nothing illegal about recording. I have it on video. I have it on video on my iPad.
Why was it illegally recorded? Nobody told me this.
I don't think it's illegal.
There's
There's a First Amendment issue here.
I'm going to have you talk to my attorney.
Your attorney?
Yeah.
Is he here?
Absolutely.
So what was your favorite part?
I just like in the still, you see the posture differences between you as a healthy physical man, and he looks like he spends a little bit too much time behind a desk.
Yeah. He's dressed very nice though. And then this is the cease and desist letter. I hereby demand you refrain from publishing. So we actually asked our audience, what should we do? We're getting the cease and desist letter. We're getting, should I run it? Do you remember that? I mean,
Yeah.
Let's pull up that tweet. Their lawyers are threatening me not to publish the tape of the university president. Should I back down or run it? Now, this is insane. Like, it's one of those things where I think we got like 5,000 DMs. Run it. I think we have a video.
That is so wild.
Look at all the people telling me to run the story. Look at all the DMs. Look at thousands.
Mm-hmm.
Every hour, every few minutes. You can't see it, but people saying, run it. Run it. Keep going. Run it. Just keep run it. Run the story. Don't back down. Don't back down. Just, have you ever seen anything like this? This is like, I've never seen so many. I mean, really, you talk about OMG Citizen Journalism Army. All these people are potential.
I remember seeing that.
I don't even know what it is, but run it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I remember seeing it and thinking two different things. One, which is, imagine not knowing O'Keefe and thinking he wouldn't run it. As if this was his first rodeo.
Right.
As if you were intimidated or cowed or scared by a small-time university you never heard of.
Maybe they're projecting onto me what they would do. It's so outside their experience. This Gray Robinson law firm. I think they're in, what are they, in Orlando? Or some big-time law firm. But yeah, what was the second thing you thought?
The second thing I thought was they may need to find a better attorney, because I saw him threatening you, and I saw him saying things about the meeting, alleging it was some sort of private secret thing, and it wasn't. I was there. I knew it for a fact, obviously. So I'm like, why is this guy lying to O'Keefe or trying to threaten, coerce, scare him with incorrect lies about the lies?
Well, it seems like a lot of what these people do is they use bluster and innuendo and the like a peacock. I call it the legal peacock. We're lawyers, we've got briefs and memos, and it works. It's successful, but I guess it's a game of chicken, and they haven't sued me yet, by the way.
So that was the other thing that really troubled me. So when I got an email from the president right afterwards. He emailed the whole university.
I think we have that, guys. Let's pull up that email from the president. Here it is.
And he immediately attacks
Here it is.
the whistleblower.
Dear Panthers, that's your mascot?
It is.
Okay. Last Friday, I joined a meeting with psychology faculty, invitation of what's
The
Copladine?
College of Psychology and Liberal Arts.
Which you're in. You're a
Yes.
professor. You're a tenured professor.
I was.
You were at the time of this situation. The purpose was to address questions about our continued efforts to align. As always, we're navigating these changes with a clear commitment to full legal compliance and academic excellence. Unfortunately, that private meeting was illegally recorded and shared with OMG, which is known for, well, now everybody at Florida Tech knows about O'Keefe Media Group, don't they? Which is known for distributing selectively edited and deceptively edited video content. The video has since been published and misrepresents my comments, offered in a spirit of empathy and clarity, as somehow indicating noncompliance. So your reaction to this?
Okay, so there's a bit to say about that. So it was very troubling to see that message and to receive it, because I was a recipient of that from the president.
How many people go to the school? How many people are involved in the school?
I don't
Students
know,
plus
maybe,
faculty.
Maybe 10,000.
Okay.
It's hard to say.
That's a large number of people.
I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. I might have if I was still employed, but I forgot. So the point though is that when I saw that message, I knew he was lying about the lie. And as I mentioned in our earlier part of the conversation, my hope at that point was that my involvement would be over. In fact, you had actually talked about doing some follow-up interviews, and at the time, I declined. And I said, I'm not interested. I'd rather kind of stay discreet and move on. I felt like I did my duty to share the truth. And the people who care about the truth, whether it's the Attorney General's office or the federal agencies, if they're so moved to find problem, they can operate on that truth. But I felt like I did my duty. And when I saw that message received just shortly thereafter you published, it was troubling because he was lying about the lie. And he said it was a private meeting. It wasn't. They send everything that's said is sent out. Like you just showed some of the things that are that were sent out. I know that for a fact. I've been in meetings where the deans in that meeting said, this is a public meeting. If you want to talk about something private, have a different meeting with me. I have that audio actually too, which is...
you sent that to us, right?
I did. So I know for a fact that the president of Florida Institute of Technology was lying in the very first sentences that he sent the entire campus community. Second, he engaged in some very sneaky sleight of hand about you and about what you produced, which was to say, first, you were known for selective editing or deception. He didn't say that the video was selectively edited or deceptive.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
And so right off the bat, so I'm a psychologist. I study human behavior.
Interesting.
I study the psychology of these things, of humans. And this is what I do. And so I could see right off the bat, this was
New York Times style article.
Yeah, I'm sure he hired a PR firm to handle this.
Pull it up
and
put it on the screen. Just so the audience can hear. Unfortunately, that private meeting was illegally recorded and shared with OMG, which is known for distributing selectively edited and deceptive video content. That's how the New York Times writes it.
Yeah.
You see what they did? It's almost like you have to contort it to understand. They use in a positive. Yeah.
He didn't say you did any of those things.
Did he write this?
I'm sure he couldn't write anything. He's a civil engineer by training. But
civil engineer.
Seriously.
Which is civil engineer turned New York Times reporter.
But I'm sure he hired a crisis comms group.
They attacked the messenger. Now, but they didn't say the video was deceptively edited.
No, they didn't.
That's
so you could, in theory, maybe everything you've ever done was that way. I don't happen to think so. But even if it was, it doesn't mean that video was. And so then you move forward to the next part. It says, now he talks about that video and he says it misrepresents my comments. I was there as a witness. That's a lie. He says that as somehow indicating noncompliance. He was specifically describing his intentions and ways he would be non-compliant. And specifically in that meeting, as a participant and a witness in that meeting, he was recruiting us as willing participants, most of the room, in that effort to be non-compliant. And it was many co-conspirators in that scheme and plot that we were first told about.
Interesting.
In the month beforehand. We were emailed those minutes out the night beforehand. He came here and told us the same thing. So there's intentionality to deceive and defraud, and with many others as co-conspirators. That's a conspiracy to defraud.
Were there anyone else in that room who was against what he was doing, to your knowledge?
Well, I don't know people's inside thoughts. I never want to characterize an entire group because you don't know, but nobody wanted to say anything.
This is a psychology department.
The majority were very sympathetic. Your video captured that correctly, and they were all supportive and active, willing co-conspirators in that conspiracy to defraud state and federal funds, of which you and I are both taxpayers in the state of Florida. And so when he then emailed saying that it was misrepresentative and indicating noncompliance, I'm like, the entire point of the meeting was to engage the plot of noncompliance that you don't have to write down.
So
That
he
is-
was trying to recruit other people to participate in this whole plot. And he was exposed.
Yeah, he was caught. He was caught red-handed, and I thought that maybe, mea culpa, you move on. But the fact that he literally denied what I knew to be true and lied about what I knew to be true really troubled me. The truth matters.
Turns out more members are taking money from donors.
I want to talk about your investments.
I want to talk about you.
I'm a fighter.
You're a cheat.
I'm a warrior.
You're a liar.
And I will get my justice. Not revenge, but justice.
Is it all about money?
Too bad you can't afford that.
Big difference. The truth matters, and not everyone believes that. You are on the Price Is My Life podcast show for a reason. Something made you do something about this. Most people don't do the thing for many reasons, but that's very interesting to me. And then there was the backlash. What happened next?
Yeah,
After the story came out, after we published it, after we ran it. Oh wait, there's more. In response to this, Florida Tech is taking legal action. The videos do not tell the whole story. They accurately reflect they do not accurately reflect my statements. The facts are as follows. He lays out facts. Florida Tech has been aligned with Governor DeSantis' directives and is taking all the necessary steps to demonstrate compliance. You underlined that because it's false.
It is false.
Tell us why it's false.
Because you're just demonstrating something. You're not doing something. Magicians demonstrate things. They demonstrate a card disappearing or a card showing up. That's magic because it's not true. It's an illusion. It's a facade, and that's what's happening on campus and at many campuses. We've seen this in the news in lots of places. They're not doing the things. I was there. I was a witness in that meeting and many others where people describe their efforts to continue doing the things that they don't want to be caught doing and integrating these discriminatory teachings of DEI.
So by using that word demonstrate, which you highlighted here, they're using sophistry and they're able to dance around the issue in their statement.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not hard to say truth. Well, sometimes it can be difficult to say difficult truths. That can be true.
Yeah.
But it's also a whole, just tell the truth, man.
Florida Tech remains firmly committed to its mission and values with an unwavering focus on our students. It just sounds like a bunch of gobbledygook on the bottom there. It's just gobbledygook. It doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't, because I'm here. I blew the whistle. I did the right thing. I spoke the truth. That was a difficult truth to tell, by the way. It comes with risk, and I've paid the price. Some price.
You paid a serious price, and we're going to get into the backlash. This is the statement they put out.
No, this is the meeting minutes that
meeting
preceded
minutes.
it. And the reason this is really important, and this is why I kind of wrote a follow-up in the Substack, but the reason that this is really important is because it proves his email statement wrong. He says that you took him out of context. Well, what is the context?
How did we take him out of context?
Yeah, and what is the context? Well, this says what the context was, because it says he said, I came to the meeting to reassure faculty. The truth is, he came to the meeting to tell us what we were already told, which is to stay under the radar, to try to avoid getting in trouble, to avoid litigation, but keep doing what you're doing. We're not going to change our values. We're going to keep doing the things that we value, which is DEI, discrimination.
He does not feel, who's he?
That is the government, the President Nicola.
He does not feel we need to change our value, but we need to be mindful of federal mandates. We do not want to find ourselves in court, so let's fly under the radar. These are the minute meetings. This needs to come from the president's office. Blah blah blah. So they're trying to get this to fly under the radar. Yeah. So let's go to the statement made by the university. Everyone, after
sorry, I don't mean to.
Go ahead.
But it says, so the faculty said this directive needs to come from the president's office. We want to be told this by the president, which is why he came to the meeting, because he's telling us we want to fly under the radar. We said, come tell us in person. You can write it down.
Or tell it to our faces.
And so that's the context. How did he come here, right? To tell us to fly under the radar. And then it says, this meeting minute describes where then the president's office, they said they will not do that because it could be used as future evidence. So when we say we need this instruction that we can continue teaching our DEI, we need that to come from the president's office. Write it down, send it to us, give us some cover so we don't lose our grant funding, so we don't lose, so we don't get in trouble. And we said that directive needs to come from the president. If we're going to do, if they're being telling us to fly under the radar, verbally, orally, we said, well, can you write that down? And they said, no, we won't do that because it could be used as future evidence. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, evidence of what?
Yeah,
a conspiracy to fraud?
Yeah, this is a cover-up. This is a cover-up. So, thank you for pointing that out. These are from the meeting minutes.
How do we do a workaround?
How do we do a workaround on the research project? That's a smoking gun right there.
And so when I knew that because I was present, and then I also received this. So when I saw them email you, I'm like, old Johnny Niccolo. You know, he's lying about the lie.
What were you feeling? Were you feeling compelled to speak the truth? Angry? This is another one.
This is a really good question.
Keep it on here while we're talking. Go ahead. It's
a really good question because what was I feeling? I was feeling a lot of different things. One, I was actually, when this video came out, I think I was back on family leave. Like I have a special needs baby that had been born. We have postpartum medical complications.
How old's your kid?
I have a 4-year-old and at that time, maybe a 7-month-old.
7-month-old baby.
And so a special needs kid. We've been in the throes of postpartum complications for a long time. High risk pregnancy, a lot of different medical situations. And so anyways, I was on, I may have been back on family medical leave. So I see this and it was troubling because one, you're mad that anytime people lie, nobody's really happy about seeing lies.
Well, that's really an existential statement, but continue. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
I printed out.
I know you can argue against that.
No, we could spend 3 hours just on that statement, but continue.
But then it was troubling too, because I was on leave, like in some respects, like my hands were tied. Like I couldn't say or do much else because like I wasn't at work. And you don't like seeing lies. My job as a tenured professor is to speak the truth. Students look to me to execute an obligation of truthfulness.
Most professors, not in my university, I was lectured about how great communism was in philosophy and political science classes.
Yeah. But, students are expecting that you're telling them the truth. There's this sort of,
It's the way it should be.
Yeah, I've always felt that way. Maybe I was wrong. Apparently, maybe they don't believe me, but maybe they're,
Do you consider yourself a scientist?
Yes, which is the pursuit of truth.
Which is perhaps liberal arts is, well, that's also supposed to be the pursuit of truth.
So is journalism.
So is journalism, the pursuit of factual accuracy.
Well, we have about as much truth in journalism as we have in science these days.
But I want to get into, for those of you who are listening, I want to get into Rick's background with NASA and some of the other things he's doing. We're just we're taking them on a journey about what the who and the what and the where happened. And the living not by lies. So you just wanted to speak the truth. You just wanted to get the truth out there, and you objected to the lies. All of it is a big lie, it seems.
Yeah, and now you're doubling a lie on a lie. And
also known as a cover-up.
Yes.
And the cover-up is often worse than the original so-called crime. Conspiracy. This is an article in the Florida Tech Crimson. Is this the official student newspaper?
Yes, it is.
Nobody knows what to do. Florida Tech alters DEI policies, written one day after our story. Let's see. Title IX funding is the federal funding Florida Tech receives for scholarships.
Title IV.
Florida Tech is required to allow federal regulations to maintain this funding. Staff is taking preventative measures. And then on the bottom, there's an editor's note. Oh, here we go. Brian Elrick, the vice president, said the bulk of the Title IV funds went direct loans. Losing Title IV funding would mean closing the doors. Editor's note, the interviews and information were gathered prior to the video released by OMG. So why did you highlight all this? What was important about this one to you?
Okay, so this is something that is very important, I think, to that story, to the meeting that happened, and for what people should know. And the reason I say that is because it tells an even more complete story of what was actually happening. And so when your viewers can go back and watch your film as you publish it and you've shown clips of, the big catch was the $7 million grant from the governor's office, that the governor's office put out a statement confirming your reporting, saying we did meet with this university, we did tell them don't do DEI. That was essentially the low-hanging fruit. But what he went on to say in that meeting was that he said, but if I lose $7 million, we can live with it. He said, that's okay. I want to fight back. And he said, the reason I want to fight back is, he said, I can live with losing $7 million, which, by the way, I'm pretty sure he has a fiduciary duty to make sure he doesn't lose $7 million. Mm-hmm. But putting that aside, what he went on to describe was there are bigger things that he's concerned about losing. Our research funding from the National Science Foundation is way more than $7 million. He says EASE grants, which are Florida state funds that are $2,000 or $3,000 for every single student from the state government. He says he's concerned about losing those. Then he says, I'm concerned about losing federal funds in tuition. Well, the federal funding through tuition is these Title IV funds that the vice president of Student Life, Davey McMahon there, says they receive $69 million in Title IV funding for students. And so that's way more than $7 million. That's why he can afford to lose $7 million. He came to our meeting to tell us, go under the radar, keep doing what you're doing, keep doing these values of DEI. He says, I believe critical race theory is important to teach. It's a valuable class. Keep teaching it. But don't get caught.
Don't get caught.
Don't get caught, because this is what he was wanting. It was a $69 million fraud, not just a $7 million fraud. That is a horse of a different color. That is a fundamentally different.
And he almost, there's an element of shame because he acknowledges what he's doing is wrong by telling people we need to do this privately. That's also interesting. He knows it's wrong.
He knows it's wrong, but I don't think he knows shame.
Tell me more about what you mean by that.
I don't think he knows shame. He's shameless.
Heedless, shameless?
Yeah.
Shameless.
If he knew shame, he would have been ashamed of what he said in that meeting that you reported. He would have been contrite.
Maybe he is in the mirror at night. I don't know. You know the man better than I do. Some of these people project the big game, and then in private but maybe you're right. You can only speculate. But let's not speculate. Let's talk about let's go back to the moment or the spiritual episode that you are having in April, March, April, and in your blog post and on your Give, Send, Go page. By the way, let's have that Give, Send, Go page up because I want to promote it. There's a legal bill that you have to pay, and this is called "The Truth Is Not for Sale in Our Family." If we could make that image full screen on the TV so I can read that. They tried to silence me. Live Not by Lies by Solzhenitsyn is linked by you. And this was interesting. You know, Solzhenitsyn is one of my favorites. And it seems like this was the inspiration for you a little bit. Had you read this prior to?
It's a great essay.
It's a great essay. We're called upon to step out into the square and shout the truth. But let us at least refuse to say what we do not think. Our way must be never knowingly support lies. Has the time come for us to stand straight as an honest man, worthy of the respect of our children, our contemporaries? And then from this day onward, we, and then he writes, shall not sign a lie, publish a lie, paint a lie, cite a lie, demonstrate, raise a hand. He has all these items. And then he says this, which reminds me of you. Yes, at first it will not be fair. Someone will have to temporarily lose his job. He's talking about, Solzhenitsyn's talking about you. For the young who seek to live by truth, this will at first severely complicate life. But he says, flames will not engulf your body. Your eyes will not pop out from the heat. Your family will always have at least a piece of black bread to wash down with a glass of water. Now, that's very abstract, written 60 years ago.
Do you know why he wrote that?
Tell me.
So for perhaps the younger generation that is unfortunately not taught Solzhenitsyn in so many of their classes anymore, the reason he wrote that, to my knowledge and understanding, it was an answer that he gave to the question of how did the gulags emerge? How did communism manifest to put so many slaves into gulags and death camps in the Soviet Union? And for those who may not know, Alexander Solzhenitsyn is a Nobel Prize winning laureate for his literature about a book called The Gulag Archipelago, which is his account of living as a slave in the work camps and death camps of Siberia in Soviet communist Russia. And they asked him at some point, somebody, how did this happen? How do we make sure that this doesn't happen again? And that essay was the answer to that. There's many ways to avoid communism and slavery and oppression and tyranny. Volumes and volumes of encyclopedias, podcasts can be described about. There's a lot to do to fight that fight for freedom. However, he distilled it into living not by lies.
Living not by lies.
That essay explains that when he describes everything that you were relating, that's what he was telling the person about how to avoid the march to gulags and death camps. It was that piece by piece, little tiny sliver, people gave in to the lie. They went along with the little lie, the middle lie, then the big lie. And soon enough, they're in a work camp in Siberia and Russia as slaves because the country caved to the lies, things that were so obvious, but nobody stood up to say anything or do anything to. And things that you might, as kids, you think of the emperor doesn't have any clothes story, or speak up and say, hey, this is pretty obvious. He's saying that's how it happens. Little by little.
You compromise on, like Jordan Peterson talks about, you give them an inch, and suddenly you're a mile away. You're in a Soviet gulag just because but most people don't operate like this. But you do.
Well, and others do too. And I think that my hope and what I've been encouraged by is seeing that others are standing up and speaking that truth too. Inspired a lot by what you guys do. You've done that your entire career and speak the truth. You've revealed the truth. And that is so important. And it inspired me decades ago when you started. I remember your old stories. It was
pimp coat. You saw that outside.
Oh yeah. And so, how does that happen? Like he said, some people will have to lose their jobs. And that's a scary thing. It's happened to me now. It's happened to many people, but you know what? It's happened to so much worse to others. And one thing I would say to people too is, we're here as a country that has the First Amendment to speak freely, to do journalism, because of people who died in war, in combat, and sacrificed limbs, health, and life to protect and preserve those rights. And those wars weren't fought by childless men.
Those wars were not fought by childless. They all had children, and they gave up their lives.
They were willing to do it even knowing the price.
That's a big price. Let's put that give, send, go back on the page, guys, so we can have that, because I want to quote some of this. This is your give, send, go page. $200 so far. We love you. We're praying for you. And this is really inspirational. My integrity, like the truth, is not for sale. I'm reading from this give, send, go page. What's the URL of the page, by the way? Rick, what's the URL?
I will
Okay,
find it.
we'll
and
find
say
it.
it.
That's
But it's a
if you just click on
gobbledygook of a few letters.
Jay, maybe it's written like a true scientist. GJ3. It's like RC. It's like Star Wars.
Yeah.
GJ3G6.
And I would.
But let's go back to the. I walked away with no money. But all my integrity, I'm also still free to speak the truth, and you cannot put a price on. Guys, if you could scroll up, because Rick's head is blocking the text.
I'm so sorry.
So just scroll. No, it's not your fault. Just scroll up. We instantly lost our health insurance, our mortgage. My wife was only one kidney. So you're a neuroscientist who worked with NASA, and now you're mowing lawns.
Yeah.
I mean, you're literally mowing lawns for $30.
Yeah, $130 a month. I'm working on my neighbor's lawn. Maybe a few more if I'm lucky. But it's one of those things that is kind of a badge of honor. You got to pay the bills. You got to take care of business. You got to provide for your family. You got to provide food, and that's not enough to provide the food. But the first thing you do in these situations is you don't let moss grow on a stone. And so you got to keep that stone rolling. Moss doesn't grow on a rolling stone. You got to keep active, keep your feet moving, don't wallow in self-pity, and do everything you can to make it happen. So I'm a worker, and the first thing I did was my very first job. I was mowing my neighbor's lawns in Mount Prospect, Illinois, and age 11. And so whatever you can do to make that work, that's what we're doing to help pull things together.
You didn't even hesitate. You just went right to working.
Yeah.
Mowing lawns.
Well, yeah, I mean, you do what you know, and then you figure out what you don't know, and you start to do that too. But, I mean, I was inspired. I mean, I remember the commander of my mission at NASA, he was a civil servant, and during different furloughs of things in the government, he started, he's a PhD in biomedical engineering from Rice, and was a test flight engineer for the T-38 jets, rebuilt all their glass cockpits. Furlough happened. He's got 5 kids. He broke his toe because he was working as a furniture mover, moving furniture in between. Because you do what you can, and you do what you have to as a father.
To earn money to just enough money to live, even if it's not enough, just something.
Well, something starts. You can't. It's better than nothing, and you keeps moving.
Well, a lot of people would probably pity themselves in the circumstance that you're in. I mean, you were at NASA. You're a tenured track professor, tenured professor, and do you find yourself doing that to yourself? You're a human being.
No, I don't. I'll tell you, it's funny. I just had a quote come to mind from my time in Jersey. Bill Clinton once told me that in life, as in politics, nothing's permanent. He came to our school in Jersey.
Did he say that in the school?
He told me.
He told you personally?
Yeah, I mean, I was there.
I think I'm familiar with that quote.
Yeah, it's a good quote.
It's a great quote. Well, it's also like, this too shall pass.
Yeah. And so, you draw upon that. And like I said, it's a badge of honor. It is weird. Sometimes, you think back. So, you think sometimes you're out there sweating in the sun. I like sweating in the sun. But, when I'm out there, and I'm mowing my own lawn for years anyways, right? So there's no big deal on that respect. But like, I've always thought sometimes I'm out there in Florida heat, covered in mud and bugs, doing whatever, you can extra to make ends meet. In this respect, doing some yard work. And for a moment you might self-pity, for a moment you might wallow. And I'm a human being, so you get there every now and then. But I think back to Genesis and the instructions to Adam from after the fall in the Garden of Eden was, you are assigned to toil in the soil now. that's what you will do. That's okay. That gives great strength. I'm like, yeah, okay. So no, I think that's how the devil gets in our head to play tricks on us and get us to commit the sin of being daunted by doubt and worry, which is not trusting God. We got what Christ said in the one of the parables, the lilies in the field. The birds and the sparrows and the lilies in the field, they don't worry about a thing, and they're fine. And how much more valuable are you to God than the lilies and the birds? So if they're not worried, why are you worried? Trust. Have faith in God. And when we falter is when the devil gets in and dances in between our ears, in our mind, and puts that little bit of doubt, that little bit of dauntedness, and makes us forget that. And we go back to the human part of the worry and not trusting God. And when we do trust God, we know this will pass. We know that there's, different pathways in life. And so, I'm kind of like Forrest Gump. Like, I'm happy to mow the lawn if we have to.
Gump.
He mowed it for free.
Yeah, he did.
I'm charging my...
He did. Well, you're charging.
Yeah, so she's actually a sweet lady. We're actually helping out with some things. But,
I'd like to come help you mow the lawn.
I more than welcome to.
If you need
I could use a hand, actually.
Do you do it on weekends?
Yes, I do.
Maybe this week.
My lawnmower broke yesterday. I couldn't even finish it. It actually broke. So I'm halfway through. You can come help me finish the second half. I got to go get another one. But
Yeah, I mean, that's really rare, I think. I think people, you're describing the whole mission of what we need to do as humans, but people have all these questions. And I'll give you a question, and eventually we're going to do live questions from our subscribers here on the Price of My Life podcast, because I want to have you back to have our audience ask you questions, because I think you're very inspirational. But it's like, what does your wife think? To the extent that you're willing to say. If you're not comfortable, I understand. But if there's anything you could say about that situation, because I've seen it. People get divorced. Or there's an unequal yoked situation happening in a marriage, especially these days, maybe versus 50 or 100 years ago.
That's a great question. So my wife is amazing. You've had the chance to meet her, if you remember. She's wonderful. What does she say? You should have her on. She's a great person. So she, first of all, just full pass. Her message to me was full send.
Full send. Like, it's a very mimetic thing to say.
Her and I are a couple and a team and very committed to each other. Our job is to get each of us into heaven. That's the nature of the sacrament of marriage. We work very hard to support each other and love each other. She is amazing towards that end, and she's been a part of this journey every step of the way. She has seen the extent of toxicity and incompetence and unethical activity at Florida Tech since I got there for 5 years ago, and watched so many of our top colleagues leave, quit, resign over the years. And so she knows she knows what has emerged there, and sees it for what it is, and holding people hostage to the lies. And so, to her everlasting credit, the message I got from her was, come hold with your shield or on it.
Mm.
Like she's full send.
Sounds like you have a special wife.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? Yeah.
I think we all need wives like that. So she supported you and supported the mission, and you've got 2 children.
I do. And
you wrote in your Give, Send, Go. We have it up in the studio here on our massive LED screen, which, by the way, this was the screen that we stood in front of in the Epstein bedrooms. We got images from the island, and people thought I was physically in the bedroom. That's how good of a screen this is. Quote, people have reminded me that I have kids and that I need to put food in their mouths. I remind them that I have kids and that I have to put food in their souls. Forever they will always know that their father cannot be bought nor sold. They will know what our family is made of, and will hopefully also learn what our community is also made of in rallying together in times of need. Some say, take the money and run, and we would live. By the way, I'm quoting Rick, who I'm sitting with, professor from Florida Tech, who has just been fired for telling the truth. They're right. Run and we would live, at least for a little while. That reminds me of the Braveheart movie. It's taken right from Braveheart. But our kids lying in their bed one day would have to live with the shame of knowing that we were silenced for a lie. Know that we caved into cheap pressure and cowardice instead of courage. That is not us. We, you're talking about your family when you say we.
Mm-hmm.
A family of 4? You have
Yes.
2 children and your wife and yourself. Are a humble family of faith and freedom and fortitude. We don't cave into lies. We certainly don't get bought off for them. I just want to keep reading this. I'm sorry. You don't often get a chance to tell the system that defrauds you you are stronger than it. A donation here sends that message, telling them that they may tell us lies, but they will never take our freedom. You can't buy us. You can't buy our silence. And you can't buy our ability to speak the truth. So if you go back up to that quote you said about your children, that I remind them that I have, go back down. I remind them that I have kids and I have to put food in their souls. That also reminds me of the quote in Gulag Archipelago where Solzhenitsyn, talks about the nourishment of the soul. And it's so interesting too here that you're making this argument because it runs so contrary to the argument that everybody makes that, well, I got to feed my children. It really comes down to it, doesn't it?
What are you feeding them? Cotton candy?
What are you feeding your children? Because that's what the audience is going to at least privately think. Not all of them, but most of them are going to say, well, I got to feed my kids. In fact, people will do unspeakable evil in order to feed their children.
I understand that. So just at an ironic paradox, as a father, I understand the drive to do absolutely anything to take care of your children. But it's funny, I've thought about this a lot, actually. Talked with, dad groups and faith groups and things of that nature. So you'll do anything to feed your kids, right? So what kind of unethical activity would you not engage in? And
Where do you draw that line?
I think the answer for that is the answer that I gave, which in the writing, which is we must feed them food. We have to put food in their mouths. We have to put food in their bellies. This is our duty as a father, but we also must feed their souls, which means there is an inherent boundary of ethics that must not be crossed, or we are not feeding their souls, and you can't come back from that as a kid if you're taught the wrong stuff. If your parents didn't do their duty to teach you the things that matter, you can bulk up with protein shakes later in your 20s. Like you can eat food later.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of poor families out there. And some of them are some of the best people you've ever met in your life because they feed the souls of their children. And that cuts across class, across culture. And so to your question, that is something that came to me. I remember speaking with my wife about that at times. There were some events that were pursued and that were very dangerous at times in our lives where I had to make a decision. So I'm also a commercial multi-engine pilot. I fly with the Air Force Auxiliary. And we do different missions and things of that nature. And there are times when we went to go do things that might have put me at risk, dangerous events, and talked to my wife about it. And we said, this is not important for us to do. We don't need this. But it's important to do because our kids might. when you're, doing something on behalf of the country or the nation or society or culture. That is where, that's where that comes from that we mentioned earlier. Wars are not fought by childless men. These, like fathers fight too, and they sacrifice and they die. It's not 19-year-olds with no children all the time. It is oftentimes too, but it's not an excuse for cowardice. It is the reason for courage.
Having a child where you go to war as a father.
There, you can't use your children as shields for courage. And I don't say that, by the way, in a trite way. I understand how difficult this is, and there are times where having children makes a very different calculus for risk, and it should. I know astronauts, fighter pilots, people won't take test flights oftentimes with single pilots. They want them to have a family and children to come home to because it changes your risk calculus. It makes you less dangerous. Right? Because you have something else to lose. And that's very powerful, but it's not an excuse. And that's where the nuance is. That's where you have to learn to navigate that and to provide for them what you need and what they need. But what they need is not just food in their mouth. It's not.
Cotton candy. I think that's it really struck me when you said that. What are you feeding your children's souls? What are you? And I mean, how old is your oldest child?
4.
Is that the child with special needs, or?
He's grown out of the situation he had. The younger one is still.
Do they understand? Does the 4-year-old understand what is going on, even remotely?
Not really. No, he doesn't really understand. We don't really.
But maybe he will one. She or he?
He.
Maybe he will one day.
I hope he does. I want him to be inspired. And before we had children, my wife and I would talk, and she might have thought I was a little crazy at times because I would talk about these ethical situations for when we have children in the future, which is that I said, honey, at some point in the future, I'm going to have to give our children advice. They're going to come to me with an ethical dilemma or a quandary and say, what should I do, Dad? And the easiest answer in the world to tell them is to do the right thing. Works, right?
Always do the right thing is one of our core values here.
Yeah.
Always do the right thing. But sometimes it's not easy to know what is right. Sometimes, what do you think about that? By the way, if I ask you a question, it may not be something that I'm thinking. It may be something that someone's texting me. It's often difficult sometimes to know what to do in these moments of crisis.
I mean, I thought I misunderstood you for a second. You're saying moments of crisis. I thought what you said is what I was thinking, which is moments of Christ.
Moments of Christ. There you go.
And I think that because that was kind of the answer. Like, I think, like, how do you, right? So we don't know all the answers.
We don't.
And there are times we're going to get it wrong. It's okay to get wrong. Like we get stuff
wrong.
Well,
it's like this morality. I say this on every show, which is a quote that I've read a lot of ethics, and lost in all of this, the politics, these statements because we can spend hours on, and maybe we'll dive in, but I'm more interested to hear about your life as a analog astronaut and some of the work you've done in cognitive psychology, I think it's just fascinating. But lost in all of it is any semblance of right and wrong. There is no, even in the Epstein thing, the DOJ, elections, the FBI is a great example of this. Is just the FBI. Like, there's no thought about right and wrong in the intelligence agencies. But it's a compass that you have to make a decision. In my life, it was the $100,000 contract that you refused to sign. Even in my lawsuit with my own thing I created, I'm litigating against my own shadow. That's the next evolution of you, by the way. Start fighting your own shadow, as to quote Carl Jung, psychologist, right? Did he say something about the shadow? Was it Jung? Carl Jung? And I was in federal court, and they asked me to do a deal. This was like a year ago. Like, why don't you just agree, to not disparage or whatever the words they use? What does that mean? I'm not in the business of disparaging people. I'm in the business of quoting them.
Or just telling the truth.
Or just telling the truth.
Is it disparagement if it's true? Isn't that the JP Zenger
Did you
case?
disparage this man, Professor, by recording or by witnessing? That's not disparagement. You're just witnessing it. You're just recounting what you witnessed.
Isn't that the JP Zenger case in journalism? That you can't be defamed by the truth?
Yeah, in American Muckraker, I said you're literally assimilating to the events. You're not characterizing it. You're just showing it. But anyway, they asked me to do a deal, and I was faced with a very challenging situation, which my chief of staff witnessed. And I was in a federal courtroom, literally standing at the entrance. And the attorney asked, what do you want to do? Because if you don't do this deal, they're going to call you to testify in 5 minutes. And you're going to be under oath for 3 to 4 hours. Nobody likes to be under oath for 3 to 4 hours. Why? Well, it could be a perjury trap. You could, it's dangerous. Just like you don't like to talk to the FBI. It's not advisable to do such a thing. And that's what reminded me of I'm just trying to put it in my own perspective. And I want the audience to think about a moment that they've been in their lives when they were forced to make such a decision. And my counsel was saying, you should do the deal. Avoid risk. Avoid risk. Why do you want to punish yourself? Why do you want to take the risk? But there was a little birdie inside of me that almost embraced going up on that witness stand. Why? Because I wanted the lawyer to cross-examine me. I wanted the truth to come out. I wanted this to happen. I wanted to show, but I didn't want to be silenced. They were asking me to be quiet. And there was a truth that was hidden somewhere. And I wanted that hidden truth to come out. And now the depositions are, by the way, as of the time of this recording, the next few days are all these depositions of the FBI agent, the board member. So that was my version of what you're saying.
You were in your own investigation of truth. It was happening and you needed it to come out.
Yeah.
Like you have to go, some things are cliche, but they're not cliche at all. When they say the only way out is through. And
I feel that.
You had to go through to get out because you had to suffer that pain or struggle or suffering in order to get those other depositions,
Correct.
to get the truth. And
Correct.
So I think people like you are special and inspiring because you have the strength inside to absorb that pain and struggling. And it's funny, when my wife was pregnant with our first son, we knew he was going to be a boy, and I was going off to do something very dangerous that I thought I might not come back from. And I told her, I said, if he's grown up, if for whatever reason I'm not around, you got to realize some things about boys. I said, it's not true for all of them, but there's a subset of them. They can handle a lot of pain, and they're going to look at it as like, you think you're punishing them, and they think it's like they have a bank and of their strength, and they're like, so all I have to pay for this cookie is a beating? Okay. Like most guys, but I'm like, there's a subset of guys. They tend to, you'll see them in special operations, you'll see them in also like a cohort of people who are like, they understand that like, oh, okay, so I'm willing to pay the price of suffering because I know I'm strong enough. I've got some extra.
Is it conscious? Is it a conscious choice for men? I don't think it was for me.
Sometimes, but a lot of times I think it might be implicit. But I mean, somebody like you that your attorney might not be willing to have that bank to go through that, but you're like, no, I think I can.
It's a little bit of projection from the other dude or from the other person where they're like, I don't think you should do this. And maybe that's because they don't have the internal fortitude. But it's also a little bit of naivete perhaps, or idealism.
Yeah.
Because in some cases, it's not so much that you are thinking, man, this is going to suck. I'm not like thinking about the pain. what we're thinking about is, but how joyous and how beautiful the truth once it gets uncovered. Is that true?
Yeah.
In your it seems to me you're more thinking about, man, this is a cover up. This is wrong. People need to know. And that's what you're focused on.
Well, the truth matters.
The truth matters.
And so that's that joyous part at the end for you that you alluded to too, which is that if that's our objective, and you have the internal fortitude or resources perhaps to sustain.
That's often an unknown, by the way. I don't know what your thoughts are about that. Like you and I talked off camera.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Simon of
Cyrene.
Cyrene. And
Saint Simon of Cyrene,
forgive my ignorance. I should know about this. Simon of Cyrene, tell me about, this is the individual that Christ chose, or excuse me, that was chosen to carry Christ's cross.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to?
I mean, I'm certainly not a theologian, so you put me on the spot a little bit, but from my understanding, I mean, he didn't want to at first. I think he said no. And Christ didn't pick him. It was the Roman soldiers.
Roman soldiers.
So Christ is carrying the cross to Golgotha during the Passion. And he falls a couple times. He's already been beaten to death after living in the desert for 40 days with no food and water. So he's not doing great, right? Carrying this big heavy cross, and he's fallen. And so they're like, we really need to essentially like have him die on the cross as the message to the people of our power and control or whatever. We can't have him die on the way there. He needs help. So they grab this guy from the crowd, Simon of Cyrene, and they're like, you carry this big heavy cross covered with blood in this near riot in the streets for this guy we've declared a convicted criminal. And he's like, whoa, dude, I don't need that smoke. I don't want any part of this. This is not my juju. Like at first he kind of like was like, whoa, dude, like this is not my problem. This is not my battle. I'm gonna choose my battle. I don't need to get involved. All the things that we all experience in everyday life at different crossroads in our lives too. But what was so powerful is he then embraced it. And he looked and he saw what was happening. And he said, this is wrong. And this man needs help. Even if it's not my problem. This man needs help, and it's not my problem, but it's my duty. And he carried that cross. Imagine that now, knowing what we know about Christianity, like Christ rose and he is Christ. Imagine that, knowing what we know now, being the only person on earth who carried Christ's cross and with him. Like, that's amazing.
That is amazing.
And that's what he did. And he carried it. And if you look at Mel Gibson's The Passion, like the character, he shoos the crowd away. He shames the crowd and says, stop yelling at him. Like, leave the man alone. Like, he's suffering enough. Like, help him. The man needs help. We have a duty to help. We have a duty to do the right thing, even if it's the hard thing, even if it's a tough thing.
Sometimes the hard thing and the right thing are the same thing, as they say.
Well, it oftentimes is.
Most of the time. It always is. It always is.
I tell you, I mean, in some of these situations, and maybe you felt this way in your offer for your deposition, but I felt this way in some. It wasn't hard at all to turn down this money.
But this just happened to you. Like when? It was like a week ago, 2 weeks ago?
I felt like a couple days ago.
As of the time of this filming, it's July 28th. This is... You're just beginning this fight because you were just fired.
It was a whirlwind. I mean, I've been working on getting other work. I've been, working on the legal side. I've been, trying to, you scramble and do what you can.
You sent me like over the weekend, just hundreds of documents, underlining them. I know what that's like. You're in it. You're in the injustice, but at the same time, you're not pitying yourself. You're doing whatever it takes to survive. But I think what I take away from your situation is just how supportive your family is of you. Because it would be worse if you didn't have that, right? It'd
be terrible.
It'd be tough.
And so, makes me think of a couple different things to respond to on that. One, yes, we're in the middle of it. So sorry if I'm a little bit jittery or sleepy or a little bit scatterbrained, because it is a difficult time right now. And so we're in the middle of things, and you get to see a real life account of someone in the middle of a storm.
Yes. Which is more authentic anyways.
And two, the family is very supportive, and without them, it wouldn't be possible. But they also saw, my wife has gone through seeing what the university has done to me too in these situations, and she loves her husband. She doesn't want him to be subjected to hostility, to be held hostage to these DEI type of like impositions of being told you can't say this or that. Just absolute nonsense. She's seen us held hostage to the bottom. In a race to the bottom, I refuse to win. Don't ever try to win a race to the bottom. Because when you win that one, you lose. And so her message in supporting me is to win the victory of righteousness. And so they're scrambling. She's working very, very difficult.
What does she do?
She's veterinarian part-time right now. So her main task right now is to take care of this baby, who's had his own complications for a little while that has led to, she's had her own, complications recovering from a baby. And so she takes care of him. I take care of her, and we work together as a really good unit and a team. She's great, and she's courageous, strong, beautiful, and but she wants me free. So when this happened, and I should say we were offered that buyout of our soul. I forget what it was, a Thursday or a Friday, whenever that was, and we were told that we had until Friday or whatever the deadline was, a few days later at 5:00, and then we got terminated at 3:30, not 5. So they violated their own offer, which is kind of a little bit ridiculous.
You're making some news here, which we'll clip this and we'll put it up with they offered you $100,000 to shut up and you didn't take it.
Yeah. And so that night, though, is what I'm getting at, that like we went home, like we felt free.
Yeah.
There's a liberation. And I was talking earlier, it felt like we got out of Shawshank, and we got out of Shawshank without getting us, without having to pay the price of your soul. And that was a momentary feeling, but the longer term one was realizing what that meant for our kids, that message that we talked about, and them, I hope to give them a lifetime of experiences and seeing that their father, their mother, their family does the right thing and doesn't cave to sacrifice their integrity. This better not be the only time. It better not be the only time.
You're gonna be tested again. We're all tested constantly.
Tested. And so like my hope is they'll see this all the time. But it's such a proud moment as a parent and a father to know that in something this tangible, which almost never comes about in this kind of tangible thing. How many times has your deposition thing come out where it was that clear of a delineation?
Yeah.
So that is really freeing. It feels great because you just feel like you have your integrity intact. And not to be cliche, but it matters.
It feels it's spiritually enriching. It's not cotton candy. It does matter, and yet it seems to be rare. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Certainly rare in the field that we're in, and it's rare in politics. It's rare in media. I don't know about the academy.
Oh, it's very rare.
It seems to be rare in the academy.
But what I would say too, though, like I've struggled in academia to see the sadness of how much has been lost in the pursuit of truth. It was always thought to be the academy where we pursued truth and knowledge, supposed to be free of corruption, of influence, and money, because there wasn't that much money. You think your professor was telling you the truth because they weren't selling anything. Well, that has been worn out in the academy, and many people have written to that effect for lots of different reasons. And much like the media industry too, right? The media has paralleled that. It is supposed to be the fourth pillar or the
Fourth estate.
of truth, right? Holding truth to
The
power.
three branches of government: legislative, congressional, executive. And the media was supposed to be the fourth.
And I think that we have seen some sadness in how that ball has been dropped too, writ large in the industry.
I think it's all about money. And your president seems to make it about that as well. I mean,
Yeah,
he says
100%.
69 million or whatever it was. It seems to be they're doing things in order to get that money into the door so they could not close their doors.
Well, they literally said we'll have to shut the doors.
That's what I'm saying.
If they catch us.
That's what I mean, let's just take it at face value. The university, the Florida Tech University, is saying they're going to shut the doors down if they catch about what we're doing. We need to get the money in. And to me, that's what's happening in the media as well. Even privately, what I've seen people in government say, well, we need money for our program, for this program to shut the border down. We need money. Everyone needs money to do everything. And that's unfortunately what it is.
Sometimes you can just do things.
What do you mean?
Just do things. Doesn't take money.
Explain.
Just take action. What did you do when you went in with your pimp jacket, right? You said, I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna take action. It'll be a small
thing.
effort that was a huge impact.
Yeah.
And it's a message of empowerment for people that
Yeah.
you do need resources, right? I mean, I just asked for a lot of help with some resources. So
You're asking for $100,000.
yeah, I get that, but my message too is not to be overwhelmed or daunted or cowed or feared for people, because as much as money matters and can be important and necessary as resources to fuel the actions that you do, sometimes you can just do things. They might be small. Sometimes it's helping a kind person on the street. You can do things. You can help people. You can do a good thing. And that selling out for money has gripped the academy of universities now, that
In a
we
major
see in
way.
this story in a major way. And what I will tell people from the inside of that, as a professor inside, I've been a professor at University of Texas at Dallas, at Cal State San Bernardino, at Florida Institute of Technology, a range of geographies, calibers of cohorts, types of institutions. There's unifying themes, which is that what happens when you put money on top, right? You can't serve two masters. You can serve truth, which Christ said, I am the truth and the way. When Pilate interrogated him, he said, what is truth? Or you can serve money, mammon, right? The scripture. And universities have gone away from pursuit of truth, as have the media, and instead have pursued this service of the master of money. And what happens when that happens is that your students of your children, or our students as a nation getting educated, no longer get educated. I've seen, and we've seen this in the data, reading scores are abysmal. Math scores are awful. People aren't learning anymore. They're being taught to the test, and that's it. Educational standards have been destroyed, while they've been glossed over with a ton of awards and celebrations, as if everybody knows anything. Now, we do that in universities, and I've seen institutions. I mean, I've seen Florida Tech just completely sell their students out by sometimes pushing garbage through. I mean, I actually broke this on my Substack the other day. I had messages from another faculty member in computer science department telling me that the board of directors, somebody on the board of directors, had a kid who was failing their classes and leveraged pressure, and they passed the kid. It's an abdication. It's not truth. It's a lie. And so, sometimes it's hard to know what the pathway is. We have ethical quandaries. everything. It's not unusual. It's nothing. But truth is always the answer.
Truth is always the number one issue that affects everybody is the economy. Inflation, for example, is something that perhaps was underplayed by Donald Trump in the election, which he won. Perhaps he could have gotten 5 to 10 million more votes if he didn't. But certainly the thing that's on everybody's mind, I shouldn't say that. Money is obviously a big thing. You're saying in the academy, it's my opinion. It's in media. So journalism is about the pursuit of truth, but the commercial imperative to once you grow an institution, it's one thing if you're a little 24-year-old with a pimp costume and you have no other mouths to feed except your own. And there's another thing when you have 50 or 60 or 70 mouths to feed, and those people have mortgages and children. That kind of changes things, doesn't it? I mean, it doesn't have to. There's a way, there's a will, but that's certainly a pressure that people feel that we're talking about. And what's interesting about you is you've actually done it. I mean, people talk a big game about how this too shall pass, but you're actually doing it. And it's interesting.
I tell students different stories at times to help inspire them. And, and I think that the more you do it, like any muscle, it grows stronger and it gets easier to lift a weight. And it's difficult to lift a little bit of weight when you haven't lifted weights.
Mm-hmm.
But the more you lift and train, the more you can lift and train.
You mean doing the right thing,
Yes.
even if it costs you something, or even if it costs you everything?
It's a moral muscle by understanding what everything is. Worldly things, yeah. And so, like, just by way of analogy, I mean, I remember hearing stories of like Harrison Ford as a young actor in probably the 70s was a carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said he never had too much fear of losing an acting job or something. He's like, I'm going to go back to carpentry. I was like, I felt about landscaping. I was like,
yeah.
So you have less fear, or you have the tools to overcome the fear because you've prepared for whatever storm is ahead by learning some skills, building up for not knowing what there is. And that just means working hard all the time to do a really great job and pursue excellence. And so I tell students this all the time. So the example I give, when I was doing my postdoc at University of Texas at Dallas, I had the women in the laboratory came up to me and told me what the professor, our supervisor, was doing to them and trying to date them, sleeping with them, those kind of things, and asked me for help. And then I watched it, and my wife watched it because we were out at joint events, parties, whatever, and he would give her a hug, put his hand on her butts and say, I'd like to F you.
Mm-hmm.
We saw it. We watched it. We knew that they were truthful accounts. They asked for help. They came to me crying. And so, like, there's actual, like, guidance for this, which says follow the rules, say something, do something, like, report it. So I did. And it was covered up. We litigated that for about 9 years as a whistleblower.
He told me about
to
that.
the Supreme Court of Texas.
You litigated that for 9 years.
Yeah. And so, and I'm happy to, break out into that. But the message of that story, I tell this to students, is because the fear and the courage juxtaposed against each other for me at that point. I was very, very junior in my career. I had nothing in that respect yet, that like no tenure, no protections, and the fear that is put on everyone in those scenarios. Feed your kids, take care of yourself, grow your career. Those are very real fears. I know them. I felt them. Like, don't ever, to the people out there struggling or wrestling with fear, I mean, know that like Christ cried in tears of blood in the Garden of Gethsemane. Like, it's nothing wrong to be in agony. It's nothing wrong to have fear. It's nothing like it. That's an okay, normal human emotion. But when those times come, he prayed. He prayed the Our Father. He asked others to pray with him. He said, can you say, look, guys, can you come to the trees in the garden and pray with me for a little while? And so I knew what the right thing was to do. It was very, very difficult. We went through a very difficult process. And that was supposed to have destroyed my career by all accounts. Reputationally, I lost letters of reference. I was a very big name in the field, a huge, like I was primed to essentially on Ivy League pathways. And I ended up at a actual desert in San Bernardino, teaching in the murder capital of California instead. And so, but that is actually a success, because what I guess what I'm trying to say is I use this story to tell students that like that was supposed to have destroyed my career. It's supposed to be done after that. But what did I do? We rebuilt. It wasn't by myself. I had help. And this is what I was kind of wanting to get to in the despair of the media or academia or these industries, everything being bad. There's a lot of bad. But I have been blessed to know some really, really great people, few and far between. You're one of the shining stars in the media that are bright stars of courage, beacons of integrity. And they exist. They're out there. And in academia, like, they don't always even align with me. There's people who are my dear friends who don't always agree on all sorts of things, but I know they have goodness.
But going back to your story, you were at the University of Texas litigating, and then you went to teach in San Bernardino, which is kind of a hellhole. And yet you said that was, and then from there you went to Florida Tech.
Yeah.
So did Florida Tech ask you about the stuff you did at Texas, or did they overlook that? Or
yeah, so that comes up a lot, and these are, I love having these conversations because I think they're important testimonies to tell people, because they show the pathways of like how do you have the courage, how do you know where this goes, and how do you know how to get through?
Well, your whistleblowing and truth telling often involves violating the confidence, or being, I'm putting this in quotes, disloyal to a team. Now, your fidelity is to the truth, obviously, but human beings are broken, and you're part of a team, and that there's always that challenge. And how do you reconcile loyalty? Perhaps many people consider that a virtue on any institution, versus the individualistic fidelity to the truth. So it's interesting. How do you be hired by a team?
So, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up, because we have to be loyal to several things. The truth, the teams we need to be loyal to, the organizations, the institutions. When people are doing wrong, they are not being loyal to that team. They are not being loyal to the institution. They are wronging it.
Kerry Porch said about CNN. He said, my loyalty was to what CNN's supposed to stand for. 100%. Absolutely, you're right. I mean,
we have policies that say we are required to report wrongdoing. That is being loyal to the organization. Yeah. Who's if you drive the rat off the ship, who's the one loyal to the ship?
Right.
If you care about something, and I care deeply, by the way, I'm grateful for the opportunities at Florida Tech. I care deeply about teaching my students.
What do your students think about this?
I don't think I've had a chance to talk with them much. It's just broke. So I'll be interested. I'm sure people have widely varying opinions.
What did your students think about when you tell them these stories about the University of Texas?
Well, they're very inspired by that, because when you're starting off as students, you're young, you're growing in your career, and you see these kind of like momentous challenges or threats, and you don't feel like there's a pathway out. You just feel like you have to go along with it, feed your kids, right? And so when I share these things and I say, look, you have to do the right thing. You should do the right thing because you really have to. And in fact, the rules require you to do the right thing. We are not just honor and duty bound, but like, that's what I'm saying. It's actually loyal to the institutions to make sure that they don't continue to degrade.
Yeah.
They're degrading and debasing themselves. And so what I tell them is like, when you do these things, it will be hard. You will get beaten. You will get broken down. I was beaten, broken down. There's times I was on my knees like in agony.
When was that?
Well, heck, and certainly in the litigation at UT Dallas, and I lost my job at that point.
Who paid for all those lawyers?
I paid a little bit, and
out of your own pocket?
A little bit, yeah. At the time, I think I was making $50,000 that year as a professor at University of Texas, and But what happened in that case was that I found a lawyer through a friend of mine who recommended him as the very best employment lawyer in Dallas, Brian Sandberg. You should have him on your show.
You should.
He is a whistleblower protector. He is an advocate, and he took the case on contingency, which for people don't understand, it's not pro bono. Contingency means that he will take the case, but he takes, I think he said 46 or 48% of whatever your damages,
which is
or
healthy
winnings.
because there's reason for him to be successful, whereas hourly billing, there is no incentive for the attorney to win or lose. In fact, the less you win, the more money they make because they have to keep litigating.
So I'll tell you a funny story about that. So he tells me that, and I said, I don't want to do that, Brian. And he's like, well, why? And I said, I don't want you to make 46%. I want you making 52.
Okay.
And he said, no. I said, change the contract. I want to give you 52% of the winnings. I want you more aggressive and more incentivized to win. I want you to be compensated for your generosity and representing the truth.
Yeah.
And he went along with it. And this went for 9 years. We litigated to the Supreme Court of Texas. And
what happened?
we ended up losing there. I'll tell you in a second. But at some point along the way, that contract issue came up. And he said, no. I'm like, no, Brian, you're going to make more than this. And he's like, no. And I'm like, look it up. He's like, you really did give me more. And I'm like, yeah, I want you to benefit. You're a champion of the little guys and of the people doing the right things. And so what happens, we won at the trial court level. And so what happened in that—
What was the issue? What would we know?
The issue that was, it was whistleblower retaliation for, I had reported sexual harassment, and—
You were the plaintiff or the defendant in this litigation? Were you on offense or defense?
Plaintiff.
You were suing them
Sued
for
University of
retaliating.
Texas.
Because what did they do to you? They fired you?
Yeah, they fired me. They did a handful of other things.
So you've been fired from 2 different universities now.
Well, that one I wasn't actually fired from. That was an interesting story because they thought they fired me and they didn't. And so I went in to ask for a raise because 50 grand wasn't really quite enough to get by on at that time with a PhD in neuroscience. And so I went, and no, what it was is they didn't give me my annual like 2-3% raise that you usually get merit or cost of living. And so I'd always gotten it for 5 years, and I went in to ask, and it got forwarded up to the provost, who was at that point the president, Hobson Wildenthal. And he responded, he wrote me a letter from the presidential letterhead at University of Texas. I still have it. And he said, the reason you didn't get your cost of living raise is because I thought I fired you. I'm surprised you're on the payroll. This must have been an accident. So take it as a lucky accident, and you're fired next year. Like you're not gonna. So it was a very weird letter.
Why were they
hostile
retaliating against you?
Because I had reported their star professor for what he was doing to the women.
Which you're required to do.
Yes, it's literally their rules.
Yeah.
Like I have and then they and his letter admitted it. He's like, I thought I fired you. And
9 years. 9 years
and so
in fighting.
The reason it was such a long fight was because at the trial court level, we won. We won a couple of things. One, they tried to claim, you'll get a kick out of this with freedom of information requests and media. So I tried to get the records that they were hiding. They never gave me the investigation reports, which I was due as a person who initiated an investigation, because they ended up showing that the people lied and they wouldn't give them to me. And so I filed a freedom of information request, and it was declined from the state attorney generals who defends the state universities, who at the time was Ken Paxton. And so we went and we actually got the trial court. We pierced attorney-client privilege. They said this was protected by attorney-client privilege. I'm like, how? You're entitled to a report of what if it was a rape or a murder? Like, you can't just say we investigated and I don't have to give you the investigation because our attorney looked at it, so it's privileged. And we actually beat the Texas Attorney General's office on attorney-client privilege, which is a bogus claim. They never should have made it. But because it was a wrong claim they made, we won.
One of the challenges in all this litigating is that you're asking them to incriminate themselves by being transparent. It's
Yep.
like all of these institutions, we are asking them vis-a-vis FOIA requests. Usually this doesn't work for us because the institution is never going to indict itself.
Yes.
You're asking them via court order, and they'll litigate up to the United States, literally the Supreme Court.
Yeah. And so what happened
Texas.
in Texas there was we ended up, this is a weird juxtaposition of politics in Texas because in respect to employment law, it tends to be for workers more favored by Democrat elected judges because they tend to be more favorable to workers. Republicans tend to be more favorable to business interests, which means protect the institutions.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a good judge in Texas who basically allowed us to win at the trial court level because what they were trying to do was get a motion to dismiss the case under the premise of sovereign immunity. So the official position of the University of Texas is that we have sovereign immunity, like a president, because we are the king, the sovereign. As a state, as a university, they say we're a state agency, and so we can't be sued unless we give permission to be sued.
Interesting.
And we said, no, that's not how this works. And the trial court agreed, and we won. And they appealed it. We went to unbank as well. And we ended up losing very, very slim 7-6 margin or something. Great dissents from some judges. And it went to this Texas State Supreme Court.
What was the vote there?
I don't know that we got a vote. It just got declined because the nature, again, that juxtaposition in Texas was, it's a conservative court. And so they tend to protect big business interests. But I think that the citizens of Texas would be quite surprised and probably not happy to find out that these sort of liberal bastions of academia, these universities, are considered by their own courts to have sovereign immunity and not able to be sued unless they say that they will allow you to.
Sovereign immunity, which is usually in the context of like, I can't sue the U.S. attorneys in New York for raiding me because they're just doing their jobs. And I'm just, interesting that they made that argument. Are you in the wrong profession? Maybe you should be an investigative reporter or a I don't know what, CEO of an NGO exposing bad people.
There were times that was very difficult. And, we had wins. We had big wins. We won, we were beating attorney-client privilege at the state attorney general. Winning at the trial court was huge. And I think I sat for an 8-hour deposition with the state attorney generals.
Was that your only time being deposed?
No.
Was it video recorded?
Oh, yeah. I have it.
Was it tough?
It was tough in the
Do we
sense.
have a deposition clip of him? I think you guys showed me one.
It was just a picture. I gave you guys a picture.
It was a picture, okay.
I got but it was tough in the sense if you've been deposed, like, it is what it is. But, like, when you have the truth on your side, it's not hard.
Yeah, that's how I feel it.
Like there, like anything, right? I mean, there's an inherent challenge because things matter, so it's important to do it right. But was it hard? No, because I had them dead right. Like I was right. I had the truth, and so everything they kept trying to pick me apart on, it was almost like a turkey shoot. Like I was like, yeah, not, and we were having fun. We ended up laughing at them. If you do it, like if you're in the right, I'm laughing at the state's attorney general's office.
If you're in the right, people don't. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
When I'm deposed, I'm not there. There's a picture of you. This is 2018.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm literally laughing. Like they thought they had so many things, and we literally laughed them out of the room. And I'll tell you, when that was over, that was an 8-hour deposition, basically with lunch breaks and whatnot. But it was a long day, and they had full blast to do whatever they wanted to. But I was absolutely right. I had the absolute truth. Everything they tried to do to attack that, which the devil does. And the state's attorney general knows not the devil, right? But sometimes you can do the devil's work on accident.
Yes.
And they're coming at you and they're trying to break me down. They're trying to break down my truth of what
How
was
do they
being
do
shared.
that?
Oh, the way that they do that in depositions. They ask different questions. They push you. They pressure you. Trick questions, trick words. If you've ever done this, you'll say something and then they will mischaracterize it, say it back to you in a mischaracterized way, and say, "Isn't that true?" And you're like, "No, that's not what I said." So what you're saying is that Jordan Peterson has a famous clip about that where he drags that woman.
It's very clinical. It really does wear you down. You and I talked about this. Does it ever just wear you down?
Yeah. And I guess my message is like, that's okay. I don't want people to be scared of being worn down. It's okay to be worn down.
But where do you get your energy from?
Well, levels of the answer to levels of the question. I mean, sleep, exercise.
Which you don't do.
Which I don't do, which is fine. But sleep, exercise, family and purpose, which I have a lot of, support, which I have an enormous amount of. A
Where do you get
wife,
your support from?
A supportive wife, but also some friends and a core group of supporters. That builds up, and then comes right down to the very foundational basis too. As you climb to the apex of that answer to where do you get your energy from, it comes back to the very bottom foundation, which is faith, which is Christ. Because all those people can go away, and they have at times. You have to have a compass. You have to have that is your faith, and that's why I say it's okay to be beaten down, because like Christ shows that he was beaten down. He actually asked God, please, pretty please, if you don't mind, could this cup maybe pass from me? Like, if you remember, right? And he's like, and then you realize, like, no, I guess it can't, right? I have to carry this cross for these people. And then Simon Cyrene carried it for him. And it's okay to have those moments, because that's a normal element, and you should not give into that fear, because you have Christ with you in that respect.
I mean, I'd like to see this full deposition, not right now, but
yeah.
It's so funny. 2018, that I was deposed. I've been deposed a few times, but there was one deposition just a few months after this. Yours, you're 3 years older than me, so this would have been, you were in your mid to late 30s here. I was 33 years old, and man, they were just grilling me. And there was this one insurance. I mean, I sued my own insurance company, Project Veritas, and I was sitting in the World Trade Center, the new World Trade Center building, and I was in a insurance deliberation, and for 8 hours I was being just a character assassinated by this lawyer who was making, $800 an hour, just, and I actually used a technique. I didn't look at him in the eye. That helped me at the time. And then there was another one with Shirley Teeter's lawyer in North Carolina. And the lawyers took out and I have all these tapes. The lawyers took out a fundraising email I had sent out, and they said, "You're doing this to make money." Exactly what we're talking about. Like, I'm not doing this to make money. I'm raising money so I can pay lawyers to defend myself against you. But they make it. They twist and they lie and they distort. And then they project and they accuse you of what they're guilty of. And it's so evil. And I think, I'm not necessarily speaking for myself, but I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of people's subconsciousness, that it's tough. And to be subjected to that day in, day out for you for 9 years, plus now this situation, it drains you. It's tough. You're beaten, and when it's financial violence, it's a special type of violence because it's directed at your own children, which I think you've addressed that in the sense that your children are not going to starve to death. You're going to feed them food, but you're trying to nourish their souls, which is just as important as food. Nevertheless, it is hard. It is hard to be subjected. I mean, if you look at me in 2017, 2018, going through that, the first beating or the second beating, legally, I'm talking about legal beatings.
Yeah.
They don't use, by the way, they don't hit you with the what do you call it? They don't lash you anymore. They bring you to court. All this stuff has one thing in common, man. Everything involves lawyers.
Yeah.
Do you ever notice that?
Yeah.
You ever notice that?
It's litigious harassment. It's the weaponization of the system, and
It's everywhere. It's everything.
and so it is, and I guess like to I have a couple things I wanted to you made me think about responding to, but first on the deposition question at the end of it, they tried everything they could. They couldn't lay a glove on me, like, because I had the truth. And at the end of it, when it was said and done, I go up to this guy from the state's attorney general's office. Cameras are off, everything's done, right? We're saying, and I went up to him and I said, I forget what his name is, but I go and I shake his hand and I get up and walk because I'm walking out victorious because I'm like, I was a wrestler, trained MMA with pro UFC teams. Like I'm used to confrontational situations of a match, and at the end of it, you go and you shake hands.
Yeah.
And then it's over. You move on, right?
You try to shake the guy's hand.
You have a warrior spirit and honor. And so
Yes.
I go over, and so I've shaken a lot of hands of victories and losses because I wrestle for 15 years.
Do wrestlers shake hands?
Every match.
I didn't know that.
Every single match. It's why it's great for kids. Like you train them from 5 years old to whatever. You shake hands at the beginning of the match, and when it's over, you have to shake hands. Like the
Okay.
ref will grab you and touch your hands together, even
Wow.
if you hate each other. Like it is such a core component to
Wow.
what's taught
Wow.
of an ethos.
And what happened?
And he looks at me. He's sitting down. He doesn't stand up because he's so dejected. He knows that I just beat him for 8 hours. And I go to shake his hand. And he gives me this, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is I know a defeated handshake, and I felt it from him. And it was a great feeling.
That gives you a source of energy.
Yeah. And so, to your, that was nice. And like you said, you where do you get those energies through those times? Like you said, you're dejected, you're beaten down. I had friends that inspired me. I wasn't friends with you at the time, but like I was probably watching some of your stories come out on Acorn or other. Like those are inspiring to people like me who you didn't even know it had an impact on. And I was also inspired. I was encouraged by friends. I mean, the guy who encouraged me to reach out to you, he's a dear friend of mine, Matt Lindland, Olympic silver medalist, UFC star. He only made the Olympic team because he litigated his spot onto the Olympic team. Very famous in the Olympic trials going up to the year 2000. He was number one ranked wrestler for America in the world, and he lost in the Olympic trials finals because the referee made the wrong call on a foul that his opponent did to him. You're not supposed to touch the legs. The guy touched. Anyways, he litigated it to the Supreme Court, and he was put on the Olympic team with a few days' notice. And it involved a rematch where he had to cut over 20 pounds in less than 24 hours and then compete and then win. And he did. And he went to the Olympics with litigation still hanging over his head from his opponent, who was then litigating to try to get back on the team in Sydney, Australia. So everybody thought Matt was going to completely get crushed at the Olympics because how do you focus your mental and physical training at that level while you're enmeshed in all of those awful distractions?
Oh, that's fascinating.
And he goes out and he makes the gold medal match, takes a silver medal, takes it home.
Wow.
Wins a silver
How
medal.
old is he now?
Excuse me?
How old is he?
Probably mid-50s.
So he was going through all this litigation, which for those of you who haven't been through it, is
30s.
just, it's so interesting. He was able to compete at that level and also litigate in this dark and win.
And I mean, you should have him on. He's a great bastion of courage.
I think it's the loneliness. In my cases, I was not, on one hand, I was not alone because I felt the righteousness. When you're sitting in the depot and the lawyers are, you know how they do it. They use all this dark, weird innuendo and putting out a letter and saying, "You trying to do this to make money?" At one point, the lawyer for Shirley Teeter, this old North Carolina Democrat lawyer, I say Democrat because he's part of the elite Democratic Party establishment lawyer. And this lawyer kind of leans into me and he says, "What do you, or when you're writing about you raising money to pay lawyers, you talking about me? You talking about?" And I said, "So help me God, I will never stop fighting for the truth." And it was just like this moment, and I was alone in that room. In fact, I was literally alone. I mean, I had my lawyer. By the way, my lawyer was a blind man. He was, or as George Carlin would say, happens to be blind. I don't know what the right political correct terminology is. Which he was a brilliant lawyer. I guess you're a psychologist, or you're a neuroscientist, but when you don't have sight, perhaps some of your other senses are heightened. So he was just a brilliant attorney. And I was sitting next to him in this room being recorded. And I felt the righteousness of the truth of the thing that I was fighting for. That was my friend. But the bad news is I really didn't have anyone. I felt like I had nobody. Flesh-wise, I felt like I didn't have any actual, even in my organization. It was very difficult for people. When you're a leader, I think it's lonely as a CEO by and large, but nobody could really fully understand. That was the other problem. But what you're saying, and I consider you now, this is the second time I've been with you physically, but I already consider you a friend because of what you have been through and what you have endured. And I relate so much to it. I haven't done what you've done, but I'm looking at a picture of you sitting in a deponent chair, smiling.
You know that look.
Did you take the screenshot specifically for that purpose? Because it captures the ethos of your mind state?
I have no idea.
It's not that you're smiling. It's not that you're smirking. It's that you have this facial expression of just, yeah, I know the truth and I know your game. And I felt that. And it's a lonely feeling because not many people spend 9 years litigating just because it's the right thing to do. And what a toll it's taken. What a price. What a cost.
It was hard. I mean, I
lost
a lot of professional relationships.
But how much time?
References, time.
If you just add all the days up, all the months, all the weeks, how much time total?
I mean, 9 years. And again, like, I have to be so grateful and give so much credit first, of course, to God, but Brian Sanford in the Sanford Law Firm in Dallas, Texas was amazing. Champion for plaintiffs who've been wronged. In that case, employment law. But like, one of the things that he made clear is that, so most, in that case, if you're a whistleblower or a plaintiff of somebody who's been wronged, there's not a lot of options to go, because the way that it's been structured is that most of the good attorneys want to get paid, and they go and they work for the larger organizations, corporations, businesses, and then it's just difficultly structured in the legal system to actually be successful, because they hide behind things like sovereign immunity that the judges stamp and approve, which is, I think, would be quite surprising to people. I don't think they would vote for that in the most part. And so it's very difficult for attorneys in that field. So Brian is one of the few who does a great job. I have to give him a lot of credit. But, as daunting and difficult and driving as it was to leave, which the pressure was there to leave and quit and give up, I had scientific findings that I knew I had to publish. I had to keep active. I found new kinds of brain activity in parts of the brain that people had argued didn't exist. So I really felt a strong compulsion and duty as a scientist to share the truth of the discoveries that I had, because if I left the industry, they wouldn't be shared and communicated. And I thought maybe somebody might need that information one day, and scientifically, I don't know, maybe not. But I felt a duty of service. I was on a National Research Service Award, federally funded from competitive awards to share the findings of what was funded. And it helped me to persist. I had great colleagues and mentors who backed me and supported me during difficult times with encouragement. And
what are they saying now?
I don't know that I've even mentioned it to him. This all just broke recently. I mean, you know, one is, you know, they've always been very good. They know me. Like,
Do you have one good friend, like just outside of your core family group, one solid friend in mind, like a best friend?
yeah, I've been very blessed to have a few like that who are stalwarts, and they provide encouragement and support and prayer. We sometimes will call and pray, or just support. Very blessed with that. But you know, so through that process, I should say, I couldn't get a job. The only job offer I had was in the actual desert in California, in San Bernardino, and I wasn't going to take it, but I knew that I wanted to clear my name from those allegations.
How many years ago was this?
This was in 2016, and I worked too hard. I had a PhD in neuroscience. I was a Rhodes Scholar finalist in New Jersey, and this is part of the message I try to tell students: is why do you work hard now? Because you don't know what's happening in the future. So when I was cast aside and felt like my career could have been over and couldn't get anything, how was I able to survive at the bottom level? Because I had worked so hard for years beforehand. I had a really good resume. I had a really good track record. I had a really good skill set that had been trained in me that I produced when times were good. You store up that grain for the times of drought. I mean, that's what Joseph told Pharaoh to do in the Old Testament. It was the first recorded, documented rationing in history, human history. And so you have to prepare during the times of plenty because you don't know when those next times of drought will come, which means work your butt off as a student. Like, do everything you can, learn everything you can, build your relationships, because you don't know when you may have to rely on it. And I had to. And because of that, I was able to survive, if only a little bit, if only in the desert of California. And I met some great people there too. Great students, some great colleagues. And when that was the only job that I was able to get, NASA called to interview me for an astronaut job.
Let's take a look at that picture. Wow, I didn't know that.
So
the picture of you as an analog astronaut.
That's actually getting the UC Davis Young Alum Award. But
NASA called you after San Bernardino.
Yeah, so
we're looking at a picture of you. Don't change the picture. This is you with a joystick. What are you doing?
This is in the Human Exploration Research Analog, which was the simulated long-duration spaceflight study, where here it looks like I'm probably flying a lunar lander, practicing landing on the moon. And we're conducting research studies, understanding how do humans operate in isolation, confinement, conditions of psychological degradation, of sleep deprivation, exhaustion, depression, anxiety, struggle of isolation. Things we're talking about today. Those are things that astronauts are going to have to face and wrestle with and survive through on the way to Mars and back for 2.8 years.
Is this you 45 days confined as part of that?
That was part of that mission, yeah.
So you had not gone outdoors in 45 days.
No, although for clarity, the mission was for 45 days, but it didn't last that long because we took a direct hit from Hurricane Harvey and had an emergency abort in a city underwater.
And this was whereabouts?
That's NASA Johnson Space Center.
Johnson's in Cape Canaveral?
No, Johnson's in Houston.
Houston? You're in Houston, Texas?
I lived on Johnson Space Center. I got my mail there. That was my address. I was in there.
How many days into it before they aborted?
23 days, I want to say. But it was all a blur because at that point you're bought in. They ask you, they're like, we're going to treat you like an astronaut. We need you to act it because this is a fake simulated mission. But for the data to have fidelity, to have meaning that we're trying to learn about, it has to seem real. Because we can't have, if the data is about how do people act when they're acting, then it's not real data. We want to, how do people act when they're on a mission to Mars? So we need you to buy in. So we were bought in mentally.
Something out of this world. CSUSB, that's University of San Bernardino, California State, explores space without ever leaving Earth. Is this after you left USB, or you were still there?
I was still at CSU. That's why they did this media at the time.
Although his mission was cut short, Hurricane Harvey, Richard Addante, an assistant professor of psychology, got to experience something out of this world. This is you. It looks like you're a regular Buzz Aldrin here. Now, to be clear, I don't know the difference versus you were not actually in outer space. You were an analog. What does that mean, analog astronaut?
It's short for an analogy. So it means
Oh.
it's an environment that's analogous to space. So it's like space in some respects, not in all respects, because nothing is space.
This is so inspiring. You go through that hell of the depositions in Texas. You go live in, let's be fair to San Bernardino, but some would call it hell. I suppose there's some nice qualities. There's some beautiful mountains around there.
50-50.
Gone hiking there, and Mount San Jacinto.
Oh yeah,
I've done that. I've done the California Crest Trail. Now it's not all bad. But anyway, you were out there in a version of hell, and then how did you get recruited for this?
Well, so it was the sequence when I did the actual astronaut interviews, and then I did the mission for this, and then I did the deposition. So the case was litigating through that, and it's an interesting.
Did they not know that you were going through that?
Well,
at NASA.
It's an interesting story because a little bit yes and a little bit no. So it kind of the weave together here of these stories is the unifying theme is just the truth of the journey, and the journey works like this. So I began the litigation in Dallas. Upon that situation, I had, but that job was leaving, and I had, at the time, I was basically broken down, and the only thing I could have, I was renting a room in some guy's spare bedroom in his house in North Dallas. My fiance, now my wife, she was living in Grenada, in the Caribbean island, going to veterinary school, with like none of us had any money. We didn't have anything. I was literally, and that's where I was in agony at times going through litigation. Like she wasn't there. I was by myself in the dark, and I was worried. And you're scared. Did I just ruin my entire life that I just built and got a PhD for? I grew up in public housing in Chicago. I ran away at age 16 from an abusive house, and emerged with a PhD in neuroscience and a NCAA athlete. Like, and now I'm like, you're terrified that, like, did this horrendous situation that becomes this litigation and trouble, reputational damage, was this a bad call? Was this not the battle to fight? Was this not the hill to die on? Are things gone? Despair, doubt, daunting. You're alone. And that, those moments came back a lot, almost every year, almost always during Lent. It happened to be the time when Lent was, which is very interesting to me as I look back and experience and reflected back, because they're the times when Christ was in the desert, when the devil comes and actually put those thoughts in his head, daunting him, taunting him, making him doubt, do I really want to go through this awful thing that's about to happen when I could have all these great things on earth? So that was happening as I was in this renting a room in North Dallas, and but there were glimmers of light. I was teaching a student. One of my students, actually, at the time, is now a congressman. Congressman Morgan Luttrell was a student in that program.
Marcus Luttrell's brother.
Yes, and let's just say, I was asked. The dean asked me to help him. That some faculty were not treating his admission appropriately, and I did what I could to help him, and I'm very proud of that. And I felt like God put me here, even through these challenging times. I was able to help somebody who was needed some help, and I was happy to do it, and then we were getting ready. My wife had just come up from Grenada. She transferred to Oklahoma State. So we were packing up from our little spare bedroom in some guy's rental house. We were like a guest in his house. I think it was $500 a month or something. And shipping her up to Oklahoma State. And I had taken the job at Cal State. So we were getting, everything's moving. Her grandmother had just died. She had coming back from the funeral. And I get a call from a Houston number, and it says, pick it up, and they're like, yeah, we're calling from the astronaut selection office.
Hmm.
You want to come down and interview? And I'd been working for that for a long time. I was a pilot at that time. And, was having a rough time, as I related.
And then you got that phone call.
And
Must
I
have
got
felt
that
good.
phone call. And that class was the largest class in history. 18,350 people applied.
Hmm.
And I was the first group of 10 that they called to interview. And the kind of joke I tell, it was kind of like
18,000?
18,000 people applied.
How many people got selected?
8 or 10.
Wow.
And I tell people, my first response was kind of like that scene from the beginning of Armageddon. Remember the old movie in the 90s where Bruce Willis is like, did Crazy Willie put you up to this? And they're like, no, this is really NASA. And I'm like, are you sure? So anyways, it worked out. We went down there, interviewed, and it was fantastic. It was reinvigorating because you felt like you had almost certainly imposter syndrome, because you're like, I'm clearly the person who should be the janitor here. Everybody else is awesome and amazing. They're doing great things.
This happened right when you were going through those despair.
Right through it. So I was on unemployment. I think I'm the only person to probably interview for an astronaut job while on unemployment in Texas. And I was one of 3 people in the biological sciences category. The other 2 were Johnny Kim and Frank Rubio, who both got picked to be the astronauts. Johnny Kim had a Silver Star and a Navy SEAL for the battle in Ramadi, and then was a medical doctor at Harvard. Frank Rubio was also a medical doctor for the Special Forces and an Army helicopter pilot too. So I was like the third man out of our group. And I'm like, I definitely shouldn't be here. They're way better. I should be, I guess I was here to be their janitor or something. And so it was a very transformative experience, because then we go through the interview process, and it answers your earlier question, because you asked, like, how did that work? Did they not know? What did they know and what did they not know? And I get put this question a lot, even in the last week or 2 by some friends about, well, what are you going to do for jobs? And do you really want employers to know about this? And, and it was part of my answer to them. And I said, well, I've done this in both ways. So when I interviewed for the astronaut job, I did not mention that case. I did what some friends have recommended doing at times, which is you give a diplomatic, professional answer. And you say, well, there are some, differences of opinion. We decided to go our different ways, and that's okay. And I kind of said that when things like that came up in the interview. There's a lot in that process that obviously, like, I can't really disclose their process for selection, but the nature of, some of my, big interview questions and answers, like I tried to take the high road of what you might think of, like I didn't want to air dirty laundry, but I was, you're in the midst of this litigation, is a little bit insecure. You've got this in the background. You've got these like reputational threats and people, saying you're no good. And that didn't feel great. I knew I was on unemployment.
Did they know about this?
No, not at that moment.
NASA.
Not at that moment. No.
Interesting. Yeah. It's like kind of things just kind of pass, and you go about your life and do it the right thing, and you'll get offered opportunities. That's my takeaway.
And you keep trying. That's the part. You got to
keep trying.
Keep moving. You can't wallow in pity.
The stone shall grow the moss. You got to put one foot in front of the other.
You have to keep trying, because it's like God does not need the tools to work with, but you need to give him the tools to work with.
Yeah.
And so and part of that, right? You give them the tools to work with ahead of time, not knowing what's coming. So I built that resume for that moment in the 12 to 15 years beforehand. And so when they were interviewing me I took that high road, but I feel like there was probably a little bit of maybe anxiety that was picked up, because, like, you're not really telling the whole truth.
Yeah.
You're kind of obscuring maybe what might've gone wrong. And I didn't feel good about that, but I made a strategic decision to, you don't want to air dirty laundry and go down south. And that had consumed so much of your life at that point. It was nice to have a fresh moment where that wasn't a part of it.
Yeah.
And so it didn't work out. I ended up getting the job, but then it led to the Termination, where I applied for that. And I went back through almost the exact same selection process for the Hera mission. And this time I had some extra months underneath me to reflect upon that. And to, you after action report, you think about what went right, what went wrong, what can you do better? And this time when I went back to the Hera mission, I felt much more comfortable because I'd been at Johnson before and I was used to it. It wasn't so much of a new thing. And I was familiar with the selection process. And when it came time to do those interviews, I decided that I wanted to talk about it. And I did. I just told them, hey, like, this is also going on. I do have, because they ask you kind of like, do you have litigation going on? If you're going to be confined, or like, do you have to do, like, we have to know because people have matters happen. So, and I said, yeah, and I actually told them what happened. I said, look, these girls came to me crying, asking for help. And I watched and we witnessed the things that happened too. And I didn't know what else to do other than to do the right thing and to try to help. And it came at great personal and professional cost. It really, really did. We paid dearly for it because if you look at my trajectory on my resume, everybody always asks, how did you end up San Bernardino and at Florida Tech? And it's a good question. This is the answer. And because I spoke up and did the right thing. And
what does that mean? How did you end up at San Bernardino?
Because they're not really well-regarded institutions.
Okay.
And I was primed on a really high trajectory to do really great work.
That's the sacrifice that you've made.
It is. It's also the celebration of success because I should have been at zero. Instead, we stayed alive, we survived, and we thrived. And I share that with students.
So you don't look at it as a sacrifice. You look at it as a success.
Oh, I do look at it as a sacrifice. But it's the sacrifice, it's still a success at the same time. I want students to be emboldened and encouraged by that. And I say, look, you don't have to be scared that your career will be over. Your career is only going to be over if you allow it to be. Because and this happened, by the way, this was 2 or 3 years before Me Too happened with Harvey Weinstein. There was no Me Too, it was just me. It wasn't cool, it wasn't socially celebrated and encouraged, it was ostracized. And I say to them, you can do those things anyways, because like the story of, in Hollywood with Me Too and Harvey Weinstein that emerged later, it turned out you don't have to do Harvey Weinstein to be an actress. There's other ways to be an actress. You won't make as much money, guaranteed. Right. You're not going to be as famous.
That's interesting.
You're not going to be as
corollary.
popular.
Yeah, have sex with Harvey Weinstein so you can get the gig. And a lot of people were like, "Oh, I would never do that." It's interesting how that line is too far for people. But you're making a very interesting point. Where do you draw the line? I mean, it's a tale as old as time.
And so I said, look, maybe I won't be able to be a professor at Stanford or Harvard or whatever, but like I can be a professor in San Bernardino with students who I ended up taking them on missions with astronauts out of San Bernardino for students who had never been on an airplane before. Their first airplane trip, I took them back to Johnson Space Center and they were testing astronauts. I was no longer testing the astronauts. They were, because I had trained the students up and they were implementing tasks that they built and worked on in my lab and were now testing astronauts. And I brought them to the astronauts' birthday parties. We're having birthday cake and beer. And, so like, do you have to go do the big time? No, there's a way to survive. That's why I say it is a sacrifice, but it's also a success. And you don't have to despair that because you set up or stood up and said the right thing, did the right thing, that everything is over. It's over if you allow it to be. You might have to mow some lawns. You might have to ask everyone you know for help. Which is what
you're doing. And how much is philanthropy, in your opinion, required for people who do this? Because right now you have the Give, Send, Go page, which we'll put back up and we'll advertise, and I encourage people to donate to you. People are always asked to donate to so many things. I mean, I ran an organization for 15 years where I didn't sell an ad. I didn't sell a product. I was quite literally in the business of constantly asking people for money. I just want to know your opinion on that, because you are asking people for money right now.
It's like transformative and life-changing when support exists, and it makes all the difference in the world. It is what I've experienced. And sometimes it's been a little bit of support from a very few number of people, but it has meant the world. And the money support when it comes in is super, super helpful. But there's times when it's come in from one of the few supporters I've had through earlier times that it was the fact that it came in, the heart side.
I see.
Felt so.
Yeah, Give, Send, Go has a pray button, and we've done these before. The challenge we've run into with the whistleblowers that we did them with was that, it's not sustainable. You even if one person raised hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it all gets spent on attorneys and what have you, because the market forces make the individual spend the money. It's one of the great challenges that we're trying to navigate. But I do think it's important. It's just philanthropy seems to me, the church uses philanthropy to collect money from people.
It's helpful. It's essential. And we're called to give too. Like we do it too. But it's what I could say is that in particular right now makes all the difference, because like that kind of communicated like we don't have health insurance. This was a sudden stop that I'm going to be fighting and contesting, and that fight comes from the support of people too. Like we need that. Like my kids and wife, I need to be able to support them, and I want to be, and they support me
a lot
too.
of people will live vicariously through you, because what's interesting about your argument is that I don't think anybody has a legitimate excuse not to do what you do. That's what I'm taking from what you're saying. You're saying anybody could, if you're a healthy adult male, and you could stand for the truth even if you have to give something up. The argument that a lot of people have made to me is, I can't do what you do, James. And my response is, you choose not to. You choose not to. You can do it, but you aren't going to do it. And I think that a lot of people might give because they live vicariously through you. Like, man, I wish I could do what this guy does. I can't in my own life because blah, 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 blah. I mean, all those blah, blah, blahs. You got a child with special needs. You got a wife. You have a family. You have 2 children.
Yep.
You have bills to pay. People depend upon you. You are a PhD in neuroscience who has been on missions with NASA. So what exactly is their excuse? I'd love to hear it. The only one I can think of, the only possible one that's real is, well, they're going to say people depend upon me, but you do too. If they have some type of like physical ailment. In other words, it's impossible for them to be physically strong to mow a lawn.
And I get it. That makes sense.
Something like that.
And I'm not judging anyone in that respect. Like I said, it's nothing but gratefulness and teamwork as far as I'm concerned from the way I look at it. So, like everybody does what they can when they can. And that's, I think that's the best you can ask anyone to do. And I would point out a few things, like you said, like I've been on NASA missions and done these things. Like NASA has codes of conduct too. We're called to have integrity and operate in those respects.
They have those words in every single company, everywhere.
And we are called to do it. And and if you look at the stories of some of the most famous events in that respect, the investigations of Challenger was saved by people on the committee who spoke up and said the truth. Mm. And we expect that of our leaders, of our heroes. We expect that they will speak the truth. That's why we put them on those investigation committees. Because we hope that they'll say the truth. Neil Armstrong, Jim Lovell, they testified to Congress about things that they thought were happening that were wrong. A lot of people tend to forget about those things. So because they're doing right by the organization, that is them being loyal, saying the truth of what we think is going wrong. That is the loyalty. That's why it's like a coach who no longer yells at you and no longer is trying. They don't care anymore. The ones who are saying the truth, who might be saying things that are not popular or favorable, it's because they still care. They want you to do what you're capable of. They want you to be your full you.
Yeah.
And God will give you that message too. that he wants you to be your full you at the same time. That might mean suffering a little bit. So you learn about yourself. Maybe we cleanse some things that we need cleansing of or purification of in some respect. But like, so I found that when I spoke the truth in that interview for the HERA program, it made sense. They're like, no, we respect that. They're like that they're like, you look better in our viewpoint now. So a lot of people, and I've had this call with very dear friends this last week. They're like, what about other employers or what are you going to tell them? I'm like, I'm going to tell them what I've already told them in the past. And what I found out was that your fear, which I understand, I've had that fear. It's a well-placed fear, but it's not a perfectly placed fear, because when I've gone through it before, people say, no, we actually understand. And now you look better in our view, because we know that you have integrity and we want people who have integrity on our thing. And he said, well, what if people don't like that? I'm like, well, then I'm definitely not going to like working for them.
Yeah.
And so it's actually been successful. That's how I helped get selected on that mission, was because, and at a psychological and level, I was probably a lot more relaxed and less anxious. You don't have any, insecurities during those interviews. You're yourself, because you are speaking the truth. And you're saying, if you're not going to select me, it's not going to be because of what I'm not telling you. It's because what I'm telling you is the truth, and it's not a good fit for you, and that's okay. And the interviews went so much better, and I got selected. That's how I got the job at Cal State San Bernardino. I actually told them some of the things that were going on, and they're like, wow, we really respect that. When I talked with the students at the faculty lunches for that interview, the students were like, oh, well, yeah. Like, they're like, because students go through their things, and they're like, wow, yeah, we've gone through this or that, and that we can connect with you more. When I interviewed for the job at Florida Tech, I told them about it. We went out to dinner, actually, it was Vanessa Edkins and Richard Griffith. They said, you've got such a great trajectory. You're working with NASA, these big time publications and great discoveries. How did you end up Cal State San Bernardino or whatever? And it's a valid question.
It is.
Like people are looking, and why did it go sideways? It's a fair thing to ask. And I tell this to people. I'm like, I have to tell them the truth of this story, because it explains an answer to a valid question. What went wrong?
I think people are afraid of being exposed because we're all sinners. So to a certain extent, you represent the light and the truth, and you're going to tell the truth about if you see a situation. So you're absolutely right to say that people are going to see you and they're going to say, well, that guy might expose me. I've got skeletons in my closet. And we all do to a certain extent, right? I mean, in your case, you're a sinner. Have you ever done anything in your life that you're not very proud of that is not public?
Of course.
So it's a natural human emotion to fear that. Perhaps fear is not the right word, but I mean, this is...
But I'm not going around, we're not talking about revealing people's personal situations.
Right.
Your business and what like Simon of Cyrene, I just kind of got thrown in these situations of a quandary where there's no way out in front of your kids other than doing the right thing, or they watch you do the wrong thing.
Right.
But your business, I mean, you're not looking at people's personal lives. You're talking about professional situations where wrongdoing is happening that is likely illegal or highly problematic.
Which is frankly, I would argue, true of most institutions today. There's so much corruption and lies that are pervasive, and I mean, it's almost overwhelming for me to even sit here and talk to you. I talk to you in my office, and it's just nonstop. I mean, I don't care what it is. The local condo has mold, and they're asking me for a hidden camera because the guy is literally painting over the mold. If you were in that situation, I don't have any doubt that you would be honest and be fired. I mean, but it's at every single aspect of society now, from the top to the bottom. People always say, "Oh, Keith, what are you looking at?" I say, "What am I not looking at?" So it makes it hard for you to, well, it's hard to last anywhere when everything, when I shouldn't say everything, but almost everything seems to be institutionally and systemically corrupt at this time. I don't know if that was always the case before, or if we just know more about it now.
I look at it in a way that is a little bit, well, theological. But, because I've wrestled with that.
What's that?
I've wrestled with that question a lot.
Me too. That's why I'm asking it.
And so I should say first that, like, I also don't think that people should go around tattletaling on a bunch of trivial small stuff. You don't want those stories. You don't probably take those stories. You've got other bigger fish to fry, because the things we care about are the things that are substantive and that matter.
Well,
and those
lying
are the
about,
things,
but painting over mold is an important issue.
it is. And I don't mean to minimize that one, but I'm talking about like at work or whatever. Like
Right.
there's a lot of things that we take that I'm perfectly happy operating in the gray. Like the gray is life. Life is gray, right? Children look at the world is only black and white, but they merge at some point, and we do have to navigate that balance strategically. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. That's proper, fair. And there has to be a threshold of where we take action, and
Right.
that's where our ethics and guide us. And we have to stay strong and stay true and stay firm to that. And, like, has it always been that way? Has it always been that corrupt? Well, institutions are people. They're run by people. People have always had sin. I mean, it goes back to, the Garden of Eden. Like, we all have the capacity for good and evil. And I don't know when there's a time when there hasn't been, say, corruption or problems, but like, there hasn't been a time when people also haven't fought against it and stood up and been the light. And, there's always a golden era behind us that's better than now, but
Yeah.
like, it only gets bad because people stop doing right.
All that is required for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing.
Exactly. And when we talked earlier, I used the analogy from the end scene of the first season of True Detective. And they make an observation. It seems like they're looking up in this dark night sky, and it says, it seems like the dark is winning. And the other character says, yeah, but those stars are poking through. To me, it looks like it's in the beginning, there was darkness. And what happened? He said, let there be light. The light poked through. And the light continues to poke through. And it shined through at times. And it shines through you, James. It shines through the work
Thank
that
you.
you've done and are continuing to do. And you are that beacon of hope. But like, you have, at times, a big mantle to carry on your shoulders. You're carrying a business of a lot of people's providence. You're carrying a lot of people. Everybody comes to you with their problems. Here, I found this problem. I found this problem. So, like, expose this. You take the weight, James. Can you take the weight of us reporting this? Can you take the public hits that we want to be away from and stay private of? Like, that's a huge burden for you.
Yes, it's
People ask you to shoulder, like Simon of Cyrene.
It's certainly makes us a target, because especially if the people on the other end are staying anonymous, it makes us the target. And but it's also, I think what I said to you is that you got to find the goodness, you got to find the light in others. And what I take from what you're saying is you have to find the good people and find the goodness in people. The challenge, of course, is that can be a challenge. People are fallen, and bad people can do good things for the wrong reasons. It's very complicated, but certainly I understand the analogy you're making about stars in the sky. It's just a little bit of light can just fill up a dark room. When you were a child, you said I don't want to get too much into psychology, but when you were a child, you said you ran away from home?
Yeah, I left home at 16.
Your parents still alive?
They're alive.
Are you in touch with them?
Well, what had happened in that situation was, we had grown up in a pretty dysfunctional home setup, and my parents divorced, and we were living in Section 8 housing in Chicago, public housing, and it was a messy situation. And then my mom left, moved away, and we had to go with my dad. That was a pretty dysfunctional and abusive home for a while. Didn't see my mom for 6 years. The abuse it was dysfunctional and problematic, and I did the best I could to help my younger siblings through some very challenging times.
Mm-hmm.
And and so it got bad enough to where I had to leave. And so when I was 16, I left, and I found my mom. She had moved to New Jersey and started over again. Within a few months, I was captain of the wrestling team, recruited by Princeton, restarted back on a great track. But it was not without going through some substantive challenges. Those were very difficult times for me. I was the oldest of 6 kids, parental child, took care of them for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I had to be their protector. And there are times when I was protecting them that I had to absorb a lot. And I mean, as I've grown older, I've tried to take a wider view of forgiveness and understand, parents, they make mistakes, and I've tried to be forgiving of that. But, I had to help my younger siblings through some abusive situations they were going through. And for instance, there were times where my mom was trying to reach them and help them, and I sent documents from our house
Mm-hmm.
to her so she could help my sister with some pretty serious situations that my 6-year-old sister was saying was happening to her. And I sent them to my mom so she could help. And I think I was 12.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad had me arrested, polygraphed at 12.
So you didn't have a good relationship with your father.
That was not a great relationship time. We had times where it was a good relationship, and it definitely, when you're doing that to a 12-year-old kid like Ben Stiller in Meet the Parents,
Mm-hmm.
and you hook a 12-year-old up to a lie detector test, that's not a great situation.
Has that helped you in your journey to do what you're doing now?
Absolutely.
Have that trauma?
Well, yeah, because it kind of goes to this bigger theme and picture that we're talking about, which is like, how do you do these difficult things? How do you have courage in the face of fear? Well, practice.
Practicing the muscle.
Practicing the muscle. Like you've got to believe in yourself that you're capable of sustaining the suffering. You've got to have confidence in yourself that you have the faith that that you can survive it. But you got to also have practice in knowing it's okay to do the right thing, and that the right thing works out, even if it doesn't always work out in the moment. Like sometimes you just pay the price, but like the right thing is still the right thing. And you know what that you talk about in your deposition or other things, like that great feeling of discovering the truth.
Yeah.
When you do the truth, that's a great feeling. And you always know that that's on the other end of that rainbow. And so you always know that's part of the muscle. I think that you get to learn, what does it feel like to know you did the right thing? And it was difficult. And it's just like an athletic situation where it's like, you didn't think you could do a marathon. You didn't think you could do a 5K. You didn't think you could do 5 push-ups or sit-ups if you're just starting to train and you're on. And then you do it. You do the 5K or the marathon or the iron, whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
And you're like, I never thought I could do this. And you realize how great it feels to have completed that. The same is true for ethics. The same is true for integrity. And the same is true. You start doing these things and you realize I can help these younger kids out. You know, and we were taken from our mother at a young age and put in a very, very trying, difficult situation. But you learn like what matters. What's important is helping kids. And then, you know, so when I left to show them the pathway forward, because I learned that there was no more level of abuse that I could take in that house that would have been in service of helping them. And what I could do to help them most is to show them a pathway forward out, akin to Plato's allegory of the cave. What I can do is show you the way out of the cave. But there's and God willing, there are miracles that happened along that way that were amazing, and transformative, and it led to all this wonderful successes that we've had amid challenges. But, you know, to close the loop on that story, when I was, I don't know, 27, 28, I got a call when I was living in California, finishing my PhD and working in the psychology department there. I got a call from the lady who was my father's fiance during that time. It turns out they had a kid that we didn't know about and kind of kept quiet, and then we found out about it at the end. Well, she calls me out of the blue 10, 15 years later, leaves me a message, crying. I call her back. What are you doing? What's up? Crying. I am so sorry about everything that happened to you. I saw what was happening and I should have said something and I should have did something and I didn't. And I am so, so sorry. And it was earnest. She didn't have to say the details, didn't say a single detail, but it was earnest and heartfelt. And I knew what she meant, and that's all it took. And instant forgiveness. And she said, can you help me? I said, what do you mean? She said, he took my kid from me. I said, it happened again? So now she had lost her son in much of the way that my mother lost hers. And goodness, could I have had an opportunity for retribution?
Mm-hmm.
But absolutely not, because I had seen what it, you know, in the scope of our conversation, like you learn what matters. What matters is helping kids. What matters also is redemption and forgiveness and offering that to her. And it was earnest. And I promise. So someone I hadn't heard from for a long, long time, who for a while was part of really bad memories of things that were not great experiences, completely washed away, like a cliche from the Bible. Like washed away like the waters of baptism that people would attribute to a cliche, but it is not a cliche at all. And then I got asked, and I had to take the stand. And I had to testify, and I did. And I got the kid returned back to his mother, who he was taken from, crying and screaming, my youngest brother. And you know, when you do that, we talk about the muscles being used again, the muscles of integrity.
Also, she called you back, or they called you back and felt genuine remorse for not having done the right, said it out loud originally.
Of course.
That's what usually ends up happening if you don't do the right thing, or if you do the wrong thing. And hopefully this president, Nicolau, eventually comes to understand what he did wrong and his lies.
I hope so.
Did anything ever come out of the Texas situation where whatever happened to that guy?
He passed away before the litigation was over.
Passed away.
They named the honors college after him, but
they named the honors college after him.
But I had the goods on him. And Texas is a one-party state. And I had them all on record, audio recorded, admitting that they were retaliating against me. And they had, goodness, yeah. I mean, they were only, the trial court judge saw it and said, yeah, like they did this and you win.
Yeah.
And she was just essentially ultimately overruled on the premise of sovereign immunity. So they did the crime, they didn't do the time. That's okay. It's not okay, but
accountability is something that's certainly lacking in institutions.
And
you're held accountable.
Yeah.
You've been held accountable multiple times. You've been fired. Again, fired. I'm using that broadly. Yeah. I know that's not literally what happened, but it's broadly what's happening. 2 times, and all of the people that did the bad stuff could get away scot-free. That seems to be what does happen in society writ large.
It is.
But the reward that you're talking about is not cotton candy. It's something much deeper.
It's the food for the soul.
It's the food for the soul. That's the title, aptly named for this episode. It's food for the soul.
I mean, when you do and go through the things that we've talked about today, like as a kid, I grew up in the fire. Like the Batman scene with Bane. He's like, oh, you think you know the darkness. I grew up doing those things, being a fighter for my siblings in struggle, in pain, paying the price for it myself, learning that it's A, important to do, and learning that B, you can get through it and still do it. When you go through these other matters, it's employment.
Yeah.
That's the muscle I'm talking about. Like, it's not to say it's not that hard. It is hard. It'll bring you to your knees. But like, there are bigger, deeper truths in this world. And yeah,
it's why are your students it's like Jordan Peterson says in his book, We Who Wrestle with God. Why do you students want to get a job and make money? And then you ask them why repeatedly, why? Well, because we want to, be able to afford a house. Why do you want to buy a house? So that we could raise a family. Why do you want to do that? And ultimately you eventually get to the core tenet of faith itself. You're getting to the actual, you're getting to the precisely what you're now talking about, which is the nourishment of the soul, which is the deeper reason why we're all here. And we all seem to forget that, don't we?
Well, and my mother raised me with a good sense of integrity. She needed me to be the parent for her children through those times when she wasn't there. So she reinforced that and helped me understand those lessons too. So I give her credit in that respect, but imagine. So I thought this going through the issues like Dallas, I said, this is not maybe even my fight to report. Like, why am I going through this litigation? Why would I report these things? Is this really but so many things had happened and girls coming to me asking for help and this and that, where I remember having this conversation with my wife and saying, I said, if not me, then who? Maybe this is why I went through what I went through as a kid, and I learned the lessons that I learned as a kid and the strength. Because if this is nearly breaking me right now, as a professor at Dallas, and I'm almost crumbling, imagine what this is doing to someone who hasn't been forged with those backgrounds.
I don't think people are strong. Many people are strong enough.
I know. And I said,
not.
So if I don't take this forward, maybe this is why God is giving me this cross to carry. Maybe, what if I turn this down? What am I going to have to answer for in my soul later after death?
Yeah.
Because maybe that's why we go through these things, because God's preparing us for some other bigger thing that we're going to have to solve, or someone's going to ask us to carry later in life. That's going to require having gotten through this level of the video game first. And so if not, that is a duty that we're honor bound to do. And imagine having gone through that and then sort of like wimping out later upon the call. And that's why I laughed when I saw them tweeting at you, the attorney. I'm like, imagine thinking James isn't going to publish something. He just got Ashley Biden's diary back. He just fought the FBI and won.
Yeah.
Like, imagine not knowing what James
I don't think
O'Keefe
they're not aware. They're just ignorant of the situation. They're just using the techniques that work.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like they don't, I don't go around talking about all these backgrounds because I'm just me. So, but like, imagine knowing, like thinking that I'm just gonna bend over in the face of misappropriating $69 million.
And what's so inspiring about your case is that you don't have the platform. You don't. It's that's what's so inspiring, because I'm a public figure. I can always depend upon my audience to, by the grace of God, God willing, although sometimes it's been, I don't know how we're going to make it through. We're doing a telethon. We're trying to raise money to pay lawyers. By the way, it's always paying lawyers. Woo. Because so much of this is litigating the truth, isn't it? Cease and desist letters, suing me for this or that. And my audience has heard this 1,000 times, but 50 lawsuits, FBI raids, arrests. That's one of the trials that
I was arrested by my dad at 12.
Well, that gave you the strength, from my perspective, to endure what you have endured. How were you arrested by your father?
Well, I don't know if he was trying to teach me a lesson, but like he tried to have me arrested for, like, he said I was stealing those documents that I sent to my mom to help my sister get out from the things he was subjecting her to. And I'm like,
he had you arrested.
Yeah, he brought me to the police station. And whether it was they put me through the motions or not, it was so traumatic. I don't remember. They literally had me through they literally had a polygraph administered. It was extremely, extremely aversive. Because what it was is he was using me as a pawn to try to get my mom in trouble.
Well, that would do it. That's horrible.
Yeah, it was, but again, it's like, if you've gone through that,
mm-hmm.
Imagine being intimidated by this other bullshit.
That's the gift that God gave you.
Like, imagine going through that and taking $100,000 to eat your dignity.
Yeah. That's usually the price most people get bribed. It's about $100,000 or $80,000 or $50,000. That's usually what I would think it is.
So,
what percentage of people out there would sell their soul for $100,000? It's more than zero.
But people don't realize how much that is. That's a sizable amount of money. You can do a lot of things with $100,000
after taxes, But yeah.
So like that.
Well, Rick, we're running out of time, and I feel like I should have you back, because I could continue talking to you for 3 hours more. But
can I say something unpopular, maybe with you
I hope
on your show?
Please do. The more unpopular, the better.
I think it's worth acknowledging that, like, lamenting all these lawyers. We really need good ones. Like, there are good lawyers out there, and they make all the difference in the world.
And there's an individual representing you right now
Yes.
that we found, who I actually think is a good guy, Sabatini. I think I mean this, I'm not just saying this because I don't say stuff I don't believe in. I really think he's a good man, and he's representing you currently.
And like, lawyers are the easiest butt of every joke. Like, it gets so easy to throw shade on lawyers, and oftentimes for good reasons too. But like, there are good ones, and without them, society crumbles. The framers of the Constitution were oftentimes lawyers. Like, Sam Adams defended one of the Adams, whoever, I'm not brushed up on my history, but like, we need the good ones, and there are good ones out there,
good ones.
and we need to celebrate them, and we need to encourage other ones, maybe in the middle, to have the same courage to take these cases.
I think the framers of the Constitution made a mistake. And the mistake they made was they thought that everyone would always believe in God.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, brother, that many of these lawyers don't believe in God. So I think this is my opinion. I'm offering my opinion. Usually I don't do this. I think that was the mistake. That was not a mistake. It was a lack of foresight, perhaps, because you're right. And you are right. We can't focus on the negative. We have to focus on the good ones out there. And there are good ones. And let's invest our energy into finding them and deploying them and discerning which ones are the ones that we need to work with, which ones are not.
And celebrate them when they're good.
And celebrating them. And God bless the guy that did that with you in Texas. What was his name?
Brian Stanford.
9 years. Yeah.
Yeah, and he thought so you would never take a case on contingency unless you're really sure it's going to win. And so the blow to him and his family, it was a small family firm. It was just him and his wife who run it. Like they lost 9 years of work and that they would have been compensated for. And so there's good people like that.
There are. I mean, but if you look at Donald Trump, and like I said in the last show, 400 lawsuits, hundreds and hundreds of millions. I think it's probably close to $1 billion in legal fees.
Yeah.
So that's a challenge that we have to overcome in this country, which is getting attacked. The more successful you are, the more attacked you'll be, and finding good at and we shall find them. We will make it happen.
Well, a friend of mine just got confirmed, and maybe this will help wrap it up on what I hope is an inspiring note. But when you talk about getting attacked, I told him when he got confirmed, I sent him a gift with an inscription in a book I wrote for him. And I said, congratulations on getting confirmed in the faith. I said, know now that the attacks will only increase. They're going to get worse because that's, the devil doesn't attack his own. And when the early Christians got confirmed, for them it was a death sentence when they said it, and they were martyred. And so we take that too lightly oftentimes, and to realize that when the attacks come, have courage, have faith, be inspired, know that people have done it and that you can too, and that it can work out. It can help out with help and support and help others people when they're attacked, but know that you're on the right path, that you're in the footsteps of people who have also been attacked for doing the right thing. And it means you're doing the right thing, because if you're not getting attacked, you might want to ask why.
That's right. And you're inspiring to me. When is the next lawn you're mowing? Mowing lawns Friday?
I gotta go get my lawnmower warranty replacement or something. So as soon as I can do that, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, we'll see.
Next week?
Yeah, we'll see.
I'd like to come. I'll come with you and help you out a little bit.
Yeah, take a drive up,
Forrest Gump. 2 hours north of here.
Except I don't have a riding one. I got to push it like a
it's more exercise.
Sled.
It's very hot and sweaty and buggy in
Yeah,
Florida.
it is.
But when you're going through hell, keep going.
Yeah.
The only way out is through. Rick, thank you for joining. We'll keep this conversation going. This is not the first time you'll be here, and we'll have you back to answer some audience questions as well. Okay?
Thank you. I'm sorry for rambling.
This is a free-flowing conversation. We're glad to have you. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
And givesendgo.com, the URL. If we could pull the URL up, I know it's not /Rick Addante. It's givesendgo /GJ3G6.
Maybe I should switch that.
GJ3G6, givesendgo.com. Send something to Rick. Help him out. Send a message to people that they can do it too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, James. Thank you on behalf of my family.
Thank you.
What is your price? Because if your price is not your life, then you are